is a legend of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast. Produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent. Featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. Welcome to Godzillavangelists. I'm here with my wonderful co-hosts Sam and Joanna. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great. Can't believe we're here, actually.
This
crazy.
is insane.
A literal 7-year, going on 8-year journey.
And in creating this ranking, I thought in the live show we said we watched 72 movies, so then that also baffles me, the number of like sidecar films that we've watched in addition to the official franchise. Impressive.
I think we padded our count with some like alternate versions and stuff. But yeah, it also surprised me that there were only, quote unquote, only 38 theatrically released Godzilla movies when we'd covered 72. Well, 72 plus. We've covered more since.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joanna, did you realize that Rodan isn't even on this list?
I have, in fact, at the bottom of my list in my Excel doc, in bold and all caps and in red, Rodan is last on my list.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Because I didn't realize until midway through going to the list, because I don't remember what any of the names stand for the earlier films, so I thought for sure the guy was going to pop up, and then when he didn't, that's when I realized. But yeah, I still have to call out that it's last.
All right, well, when Rodan comes up, and maybe Mothra, maybe we could just quickly say where we would put it in the list.
It's last.
Well,
right?
we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
But yes, this is a bittersweet day because this is, for the near future at least, our penultimate episode. That's right, this is part 1 of our 2-part finale.
Wow.
Yep. We ranked many important Godzilla categories in our live show, including the best songs and best monsters, so if you want to hear about that, go buy it. But one thing we did not talk about were the Godzilla movies, where we would rank all 38 theatrical Godzilla films, and that's what we're here to do today.
And this is the definitive, never to be changed ranking. Just kidding, my thoughts will probably because I remember little details going through.
That's right, we're going to delete every other Godzilla ranking from the internet. Mm-hmm. They're going to burn every book that had a Godzilla ranking. This is the one that counts.
Yeah, and mine will be the one that counts.
I think Joanna's will be the official one. Godzilla
and
Reddit
everyone on Reddit will agree.
Yeah, that's
right. Yes, well, we've been talking about this final ranking a long time. This is how we're going to do it. Even though Joanna's one is the one that counts, apparently. We each have our lists in order of these 38 movies. List 38 being the worst and 1 being the best. And we're going to start at 38, go up to the top. And we're going to use my list as the benchmark. So we'll follow my ordering, but whenever a movie comes up, Sam and Joanna are going to say where it is on their list as well. It might be slightly confusing, but you'll get it once we start.
And I'd love to ask you guys up front first, as you were going through and organizing your list, what were some like key factors you were thinking of? Were there any was it a good movie? Was it fun? Like, what did you find? Any through lines for you?
Well, that's literally on my notes. So you took the words out of my mouth.
Whoa.
I was going to say we should talk about the criteria that we counted for our rankings. So I went back and forth between a few things, and I almost made it as most likely to create a Godzilla convert because I was like, oh, that's cute, it's themed with the show, it's pretty close to what I want to do. But in the end, it just made me too sad to leave out personal preference, because if I was going to do that, a couple of my favorites would drop like at least 10 places, if not more. So, my ranking is an attempt to weigh film quality with how much I personally enjoy it. So 50-50, beautiful Oreo sandwich.
Yeah, I would say mine, not surprisingly, was mostly on a vibe check. Did I remember it, and did I remember having a good time watching it? But then or did I hate it, in which case, put it in the red. And then also, I found myself, though, for like the top 10 films that, like, a few of them that I might have technically ranked higher, I found myself, like, feeling this nostalgia for some of the older ones that, like, I didn't grow up with them, but, like, the idea of nostalgia that other people have around them. And so I was like, I gotta push these guys up, maybe even a little higher.
And I mean, it does make sense for you to have nostalgia, because those were mostly the ones we covered at the start. So
yeah, the early ones.
And our
7 years ago, when we were 9 years old.
Yeah, when we were in elementary school.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Sam,
kind of similar to both of you. I did it by, I mean, I'll literally say I did it by going movie by movie, and just each one I just kind of said, oh, where does this slot into my list? So I went in order. So I went like, okay, well, I'm at Godzilla versus Kong. That I feel like is kind of between this and this in my just how much I like it. And I think I mix film quality into it, but it's ultimately how much do I like it? Because these are going to be subjective no matter what.
Of course.
And except in my case when it is objective, completely. But it's hard. I would say that in general on mine, if someone, I mean, some people are going to take issue with it no matter what. But I would say it can get hard with 38 movies. The individual places, like the individual placements of like number 24 on my list versus number 23 on my list, is like, if someone was like, hey, watch them again, I might flip those, or I might move 24 up to 21. But I'd say in general, off of one viewing of all of these, this is about, it's sort of a general roadmap of how much I enjoy them and how I feel about the series.
I think that's wonderful.
Wow, so all kind of the same. I thought you guys who know film a little more might be a little objective about it than my vibe check.
Well, I have a separate scale that's just purely mise en scène. I scored every movie on 1 to 10 on mise en scène and then ranked them.
Perfect.
I have a ranking of cinema verite.
Ooh.
The level of verite in each film.
Which one would win verite? I actually have an answer. I think it's 2014 Godzilla. Right?
It might be. Weirdly, I associate Terror of Mechagodzilla with having like the look of a documentary.
Yeah, it's
like
true.
Being shot like a 70s documentary, so that might be my pick.
Wow,
anyway.
There's a very interesting Venn diagram I'm looking at now that says direct cinema observation or cinema verite. Interesting. Time to go back to film school.
Yes. Now pause the episode, get a film degree, lose minimum $20,000.
20.
I've recently been looking at taking the LSAT, so I don't know which one's worse.
No. So then the other thing we're doing, we've talked about this. For any movie we put in purgatory, we're going to decide whether it goes to heaven or hell. There's no middle ground this time. So whoever put the movie in purgatory, sometimes it's all of us, sometimes it's two or just one. Whoever did, they got to make a call. So that's the other aspect here.
Fun.
Judgment Day is upon us.
Yes.
It truly is. Are you guys ready to start?
I'm ready.
Dregs.
I'm ready to fight.
I want to just say this is truly a day 7 years in the making. Like, I don't know if you're listening to this, like, we've been talking about this day for so long. We've been like, someday, end of the podcast, we are going to finally have a ranking. Joanna and I will have seen 38 movies.
That's crazy, and I've been dreading it from the beginning.
Me too.
Honestly, and I said this off the pod, this is something I've wanted to do with my friends for decades, so this is kind of dream fulfillment.
it makes
or
sense.
Or
that
it will be until I hear your top 10.
It makes sense that it took 7 years of really leaning in for it to finally happen. And how many films do we think we actually have alignment on? I bet 4, maybe 5.
I think it's more than that. I think we've come to have a consensus on a good number of them. Like, I mean, there might be a few off. Like, you might be right. I think there might be 4 that are exactly in the same place.
Yeah. Sam, bet your money. What do you think?
Oh, I'd say a third to half of them, all three of us are generally in alignment on, would be my guess.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, in terms of the exact number, I mean, I don't even know how to rank, like, I have groups of 5 where I could almost put them in any order, so I don't even want to try to guess. But if we have any perfect, where we're all 3 in alignment, we have to all say "Screonk" really loudly.
Yeah.
All right, I like it. That's the deal.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. First chunk of my list I labeled "hard to recommend," and at the bottom we've got.
Wait, hold on. This is number 38.
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you going to list
38.
a few off at a time? Are you saying that
you gotta go one at a time.
Well,
with
with a single exception,
okay.
which is right now.
Okay.
38, Planet of the Monsters.
Whoa.
Followed very closely by 37, The Planet Eater, and 36, City on the Edge of Battle.
Oh my God. Ryan, almost twins. Those were my 35 through 37.
Wow, okay, so you got
worse.
something below it.
I was just going to say, I have some notes on all the films, and for these 3, I just said, no, I don't think so. And then for the next one, I said, no, again. And then I said, no, also no.
So, Ryan,
where did you put those?
We're going to have a pretty strong disagreement here, because at number 38, I had Godzilla the Planet Eater. At number 37, I had Planet of the Monsters. And at number 36, we're in agreement on City on the Edge of Battle. Although they could go in any order.
Wait. 36 for me was City on the Edge of Battle, too.
Screonk!
Yeah, that's one.
Screonk!
And now, wait, I just want to say, too, because is the order they were released in Planet of the Monsters, City on the Edge, The Planet Eater?
Yeah, that's
okay,
right.
so you guys seem to rate the first one the worst. I purely just wrote them in this order because this is the order on the list I found. Like, they're all the same to me, but hooray, one, we technically have the same.
Yes.
I had Planet Eater last, though they truly, you flip a coin, like they could go in any order for me, but my thought was, it is the one that ended the way it did, and so I put it last purely on that awful ending. But you could argue
fair.
that the first one could be last for its awful start, its awful beginning, and that, you know, City on the Edge of, the City on the Edge of Battle I remember the least, and in this case was actually maybe a positive. The one I remember the least bad things about.
It had the least to do with the story, but no, I this is my lukewarm take, and I've said this before. I do think City on the Edge of Battle is marginally better than the others, because I remember it having a mostly coherent plot, which is more than I can say for the others.
I have to say, I didn't remember what these were, that they were the animated ones, and when I looked them up and just saw one image of the animated characters, I went, oh, no!
There's a visceral reaction.
And so I don't remember the distinction between the 3, and I transparently didn't bother to investigate, because I knew where they would sit on the list.
No, I mean, unfortunately, I remember enough to remember why they're last. I'm not just being flippantly putting them in last. I mean, I just found it to be a very dour main character, really like high-minded but kind of confused philosophy behind all of it. You know, the story throughout the 3. You know, I found there were a lot of kind of mysteries that it dangled in the first film that never got paid off in a very satisfying way. And I just found them to be a bit of unfortunately, kind of a chore to watch. I mean, I don't want to say they're not for anybody, because I think there are people who like them, but they were not, as I've said multiple times before, these are certainly not for Sam.
No. In fact, and I told Sam this off mic before, but I saw a ranking where somebody placed one of the anime movies over Godzilla minus one, which is probably the most insane thing I've seen on a Godzilla ranking list.
That, even I know that's crazy.
But yeah, the animation's choppy. They're full of pseudo-philosophical nonsense, like Sam said. And they're boring. So, like, there's one scene we always talk about that was, like, interesting and grabbed us, which was the Ghidorah cult scene from The Planet Eater, where they summon Ghidorah, and he's, like, bisecting people and stuff. That was awesome. But that's 5 minutes out of, I don't know,
4.5 hours.
300.
Yeah. Too long.
And I'm
Yay,
fully willing to
the
admit.
animated ones.
Oh no, I'm not an anime guy per se. So these are especially. I think, to be fair to people who like them, these were probably never going to be for me. They were already playing in a corner of the sandbox of movies that I don't tend to enjoy that much. But I'm glad to hear that the two of you are in agreement. So I'm not just being like a sourpuss. Like these really were pretty clearly at the bottom for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are the only Godzilla movies I don't know if I'm ever going to watch again.
The only ones?
I feel pretty confident about that.
That's crazy. You're going to watch all 35 of the other ones again?
I think at least once, yeah. What? There's a reason I started this podcast.
Joanna, he's seen them all before. Other than one movie, he'd already seen all of them. All the ones
It's just a lot. I mean, if he said 20, I'd get it, but 35 is a lot of movies.
Look, I want to have a kid someday, and
All
they're
right,
going to be
okay.
forced to go through the same thing you guys
Oh
did.
my God, Ryan, that can be the podcast part 2.
Oh, that'd
Bring
be
it
adorable.
back for the fans. And it's like just 12-minute episodes for kids. All right, you heard it here
to
first.
Ryan's kid going insane as Ryan plays Rodan 4 times in a row.
I'll play every slightly different version of it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
All right, so that was 38, 37, 36. Rest of them we're going to go one at a time. And at 35, I had Godzilla versus Space Godzilla.
Oh my God, I was not too far away from that.
Okay, where did you have it?
31.
And Sam, what did you have?
I was exactly with you, Ryan. I have Godzilla
Wow.
versus Space Godzilla
All right.
number 35.
That's really good.
we're in lock. So
We're in lock almost perfectly up to this point.
almost perfectly. Yeah.
And but we won't be probably for long. But
I suspect that.
I want to just say, just right off the bat, because we're going to start getting into controversial territory. I don't think this is that controversial, right? I think most people probably agree that Space Godzilla is among the weaker ones.
In the broader world, I would say it's a fairly even split. But I don't think this is going to be among our hottest takes this episode. Let me put it that way. I think most people will at least understand having it on the weekend.
I just felt like in looking back and kind of trying to remember, it just felt like this is one of those movies where there was just a whole lot going on and a whole lot of kind of nothing. And that little Godzilla was maybe the one redeeming factor I could remember. But other than that, just kind of a lot of jargon and I don't know, nothing definitive that stood out too much to me.
Yeah, traditionally, this is my least favorite Godzilla movie. This is something I've said a couple times over the years. And the anime trilogy had the distinction of beating it. So Space Godzilla is no longer at the bottom. But it's still, it's very close. And I will admit, when we rewatched it, there was more interesting stuff in it than I remembered. Like, Colonel Gondo is kind of a character. He's obsessed with Godzilla and has to, like, deal with letting it go. The outer space stuff is bad, but it's, like, fun bad. Like, goofy. Like, when I was a kid, I was embarrassed at how bad the special effects were. But I think Sam and Mac described it as like a happy meal of a scene.
It feels like a happy meal. All the
Yeah, it does.
the monsters, the characters. There's a real like McDonald's play zone kind of feel to the colors and the shapes. I this is gonna sound crazy coming from me, but I think starting here, if someone said I really like this movie, I would be like, makes sense, because like I could see. There's a tone to this that I could see someone being like, I kind of, it tickles my fancy in some way. I don't think you could make a case for it being the strongest of stories ever. But like if someone was like, I watched this a lot as a kid and I really enjoyed it and I will always like it and I like the feel of it, I'd say, yeah, fair enough. But something had to go last, and I thought it was probably, as well as I could judge them, probably the weakest or among the weakest. I think there are some that are kind of close coming up here for me.
Yeah, I think you could swap it out with anything I have until 31 or 30. But yeah, like you said, something had to go at the bottom once the anime was taken care of.
The trailer for this movie, though, is a hoot. Because, like, again, the Happy Meal nature of it, there's a lot going on. So if ever you don't want to watch the movie and you just want to watch a little 90-second hit, that's worth your time.
Well, and to say one positive thing about it, yeah, sure, it's number, 35 on our lists.
Yeah.
But if it was a list based on the amount of man ass in the movie, it would be number 1. Number 1 in the man ass department.
That's true. This is the only Godzilla movie with actual nudity in it. We have paper and plastic coming later, but yeah, this is an unusual distinction. So yeah, if that's what you're in for. If you're David Dakota, this is your Godzilla movie. That's a reference for 2 of you out there.
Not for me.
Not for me.
Not for either of you. It's our secret, you guys. So, yeah, it's just so incompetent and dull. There's long stretches where nothing is happening and it takes forever to get going. I can always tell it was rushed, which is not good, because like most of the movies that were rushed that I'm aware of are down here in the bottom 5.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't like Space Godzilla either, so get fucked.
Jeez. It wasn't me. That's all I'm saying. It wasn't me.
All right, are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Let's do it. 34, Ryan.
Okay, 34. I suspect we're falling out of step here, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
34 for me is Godzilla Reigns Again, aka Gigantus the Fire Monster.
Damn. Okay, I had this as 32, but similar to you probably, where like 31 to 35 could all probably be ish the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where do you have it, Sam?
This is where we're going to have a hard disagree. I have it as number 33.
Oh, okay, wow.
Really close.
All right.
Really close. Basically, same ballpark.
I'm surprised.
Not even same ballpark, just the base next door.
Ryan, it's your 34?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it's my 34 too. Sorry, wait. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I got
Oh,
confused.
wow. So we were one off from having another Screonk.
I know.
Oh,
I feel like there's going to be a lot of those.
Yeah. Good for
Oh,
us.
and I actually, we have to go back to Space Godzilla real quick, because Sam and Joanna, you guys had it on Purgatory.
Oh, well, I don't know. After this conversation, sounds like hell, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. I'll say yes, but before anyone feels like I'm being overly negative by giving hells, obviously we're at the bottom of the list. I'm going to present an alternate heaven and hell ranking at the end of the podcast that I think will be a different spin now that I have 20/20 hindsight. And so this will be reevaluated very soon. But for now, yes, something's got to be in hell, and this is the last non-anime, so hell, yes.
Yeah, and I think for me, I came into tonight being like, okay, basically for anything in Purgatory, unless looking back, I was like, oh, wow, I loved that movie. I'm going to be putting a lot in hell, so I'm going to keep a tight entry at Heaven's Gate. It's going to be tough to get in, and that's how I'm rolling.
It's going to be a bloodbath. And considering Joanna, You have significantly more purgatories than I
I knew
understand.
it.
I
'Cause
do.
I'm an indecisive motherfucker.
This is crazy because I'm a big softie, so you're gonna be surprised at how many haven't. I've been very generous. I'm in a good mood. I'm looking back on this series and I'm like, man, there's a lot of positivity to go around.
We like swap.
No.
And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that, you know, there's not an overall positive light on the series. I'm just saying that, like, there were some standouts looking at this list, and so it's hard for me to put non-standouts next to them. Just feels like kind of rude, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel it. All right, Sam, since I'm the most surprised by you putting it down here, why don't you start us off on Godzilla Raids again?
Well, it's just not all that good. That would be what I'd say. You know, we had a really fun time talking about it with Ed and Sandra, and there's very funny stuff like the insane newspaper headlines that weren't always the most sensically written. But yeah, it's a little dull as a movie, I'd say, and it's I don't actually think it's maybe the worst made of these. I think there are probably like shoddier movies, especially for the time. But it's just it's just not that good, and it's especially weird coming off of the first movie. It's just kind of like a sequel where it doesn't seem like they quite knew what they were sequeling, kind of. It's pretty unremarkable to me.
Yeah, blatantly rushed.
I feel
Blatantly, famously rushed.
I think especially too, looking back on it, like, you kind of can't help but compare an early day film to the original, and you're like, what were they doing? They really just threw something on the wall. So I think that it's for sure doesn't fall onto the, you know, winning over the hearts and minds of potential newbies.
Yeah. Joanna, you almost did an angry video game nerd there. If you had said, what were they thinking? You're so close.
I'll save it for later, for when I reveal my last on my list.
All right. You have limp direction, forgettable music, which is funny because the composer went on to do some of my favorite scores, but this first time out is not memorable. Sloppy special effects work, and that's just the Japanese version. When you do the American version, Gigantus, you get the patronizing narration, the weird stock footage that they kept cutting in, and a terrible translation that gave us such lines as banana oil, catching a woman is like swimming the ocean or something like that.
I remember it word for word.
That.
This is a point in this movie's favor, is that I can remember quotes exactly from this movie. It's business. Men are like fish in a woman's net. Business. Business. Men are like fish in a woman's net. I mean, that's gold.
That's iconic.
Yeah.
It's like whoever translated the script had to pee really bad, and they had to finish writing it down before they pissed their pants. But Sam, you're right, that those qualities of the American version that made it worse almost approached something with good entertainment value, which is why I rated it purgatory initially with some pressure on me. Sam, you actually rated it heaven.
Did I really?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so
You were always a big old softy, Sam.
I have always been a positive guy. I have it at 33. But yeah, sure. I mean, like I said, I'm going to present an alternate ranking later. But yeah, I mean, judging by the way I would write the list now, it's surrounded by hells in my list. Mm-hmm. So it's certainly hellish. But if I said heaven and I can't change it, I mean, it's in. So heaven it is.
It's the hanging out in the wrong crowd. And another point I'll give it is there's something vaguely interesting about the way it captures 1950s Japanese city life. Like, the director almost seemed more interested in that. There's more care put into the cinematography of just, like, the nightlife and, like, the social scene of Osaka and wherever they end up in Hokkaido than any of the action or monster stuff. But that's more like an interesting quirk, like when you have to watch these movies multiple times like I do. Like I start paying attention to that and I'm like, oh, that's a cool little time capsule, but it doesn't make it a good or compelling movie. And as I said, I had it in Purgatory. I'm bumping it down to hell.
Yeah, get
Joanna,
on
you
down.
also had it in Purgatory.
Oh, hell it is.
33 for me. Terror of Mecha Godzilla. Where
Damn.
do you guys have it?
32. Oh, so close.
I have it at 27. But
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
but I mean, to be honest, that's actually one I sort of struggled with, and if anything, I feel like I had more positive memories about it somehow, though I know I didn't really care for it the first time and gave it a hell. And I think I was even especially down, but this time down about it. I mean, but this time I was like, oh yeah, like in my head it's got some of the 70s aesthetic and what have you. So I put it in 27. It's not. There's a pretty clear delineation between. It's sort of the top of the group of weak ones for me. So it could have gone at 32 or 33.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fair enough, because I do like the ideas behind it, and that's the reason why it beat Space Godzilla raids again, because in some ways I think it's actually worse than them, in my opinion. But it has stronger ideas, the attempt to do a tragic love story and a more downbeat adult Godzilla movie than they'd had in a while. Just a very bad execution of those ideas, but I give them a point for trying.
Yes, I too give him 1 point. Like when I was catching up, like, oh, it's revealed she's a cyborg. I'm like, okay, well, 1 up on my list for a little creativity.
Yeah, guys, you've convinced me. I don't know what I was thinking here. I think it's like 30. I'm gonna put it at. Hold on, I'm moving it.
Okay, we're having mid-episode changes.
Well,
here.
yeah.
We can.
I've seen these once, but I remember. I remember my feeling afterwards was being pretty underwhelmed.
I think that had to do with other things, but yeah, you were very pessimistic and mean at the end of that episode. I remember.
No, I have always been positive. I am the most positive one on this podcast.
We're rewriting history. Okay.
I'm going to put it at number 30.
Okay.
And Ryan, you have it at what? 31?
33.
Okay, and I'm at a 32. Okay, great.
Yeah. There are some highlights that I don't have to try hard to remember here. Godzilla has one of his best entrances in the series, which you guys laughed at how much a big deal I made of it in that episode, but I'm going to stand on it. There's some interesting POV camera work that Honda's doing that's kind of cool. The fake topless nudity is such a bizarre novelty in this series that it's just a funny scene. But overall, it's just so slow and a slog to get through.
Yeah,
Yep.
I didn't have too many standout highlights. Besides, they went for a tiny little bit of funkiness, but nothing compared to some of the other 60s, 70s films.
No, it was intentionally downbeat and not in its favor, unfortunately. All right, 32. I had Godzilla versus Gigan, aka Godzilla on Monster Island. What about you guys? Where was that for you?
This is about to get interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is going to sound more dramatic than it is. I have it at 24. And in fact, because did I put it at Purgatory? Did I put it in Purgatory originally?
No, everybody but me had it in hell originally.
I had it in hell?
Yeah.
What the hell? Okay.
You guys really came up on this one, huh?
Wow.
Well,
The
so
fondness of looking back.
I didn't remember that. I have it at 24 as either the last heaven or the first hell on my list. So it's
Okay.
almost
I guess
the
it's
dividing
the last hell.
So I guess I'll put it. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to move it then. I'm moving it to. I guess it becomes. I have two that are basically the line. So it is now 26.
Okay, all right.
There are things I like about this movie, though.
Me too. It's just something's got to go in every one of these places.
I have it at
Number 3.
I have it at,
Where do you have?
I have it at 16.
Wow,
Let's go.
Literally half.
Let's
of where I have it.
Because didn't this one have the robot chicken?
Yeah, this is Gigan's first
Yeah.
appearance.
And I just thought I wrote another amazing space plot because this is the one where they were those cockroach aliens, right?
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
just loved like this idea of this peace-themed park that they had as a part of it, World Children's Land, and that there was this artist who was like hired to help out with art for the park. I just thought every device they were bringing in for the plot was very unique, and so I gave them a lot of credit for that.
So it had come up in my memory too because of those things. I was like, this is the one with the cartoonist main character or illustrator,
Yes.
I guess. This is the one with
manga
the theme
artist,
park.
yeah.
But I remembered being excited about the theme park, and then when you actually get the fight, it's about as uninterestingly as you could do a giant monster fight in a theme park. They don't really, the rides aren't really moving much, if at all. So I do think this is one of those, like, the images and the ideas are better than the actual execution of the movie.
Execution. I think so too, and I think I probably ranked it more on ideas, than execution. But
Yeah.
I also think I watched the film potentially after recently moving to New York, and the roach element was highly disturbing to me. And now that I'm, knock on wood, in a better situated apartment, it's something I can accept a little bit more.
you can laugh at it.
Yeah.
I would knock on wood.
But Sam,
I would knock on wood, but a bunch of roaches will just scurry out from under my desk if I knock on it.
Exactly. You won't be knocking.
Sam, you literally took the words right out of my mouth. That's the reason it's so low for me. Is it has so many elements that are better in theory than execution. And I mentioned the theme park, the aliens, the manga artist protagonist, because they're not taken advantage of as much as they could be. Like there's are fun and colorful moments when you discover these things, but then like it's kind of empty. You want them to zig left and they zag right, and not in like an art film kind of way, but just kind of an unsatisfying, lazy way.
Yeah.
And then the 2v2 fight at the end of this feels really long, even for me. And we know that the one from Godzilla vs. Megalon, it's almost as long, but it feels so much snappier. So it doesn't have to be this way. It's not done well. And there's a bunch of sloppily dropped in stock footage in this. Like, if people be hating on Godzilla's Revenge for the stock footage, but it's much more egregious here, in my opinion.
Well, as of now, I still have it at 26. So there are a few upcoming ones for you that I still would rather watch. I would rather watch Gigan than a few of those others, even still. But it is in hell for me. It's right at the top of hell.
Understandable. Honestly, it may just be this low because of my childhood trauma of seeing Angelus's face get sliced open with the buzzsaw. I really hated that.
Oh, that was
and
sick.
that happens in this movie, so yeah.
This one was the one with an unusual amount of blood, as I remember.
Yeah, they were chasing the Gamera audience with this one.
Man,
Really.
Gamera,
Oh, love Gamera.
big Gamera fans here.
Big Gamera fans.
All right, 31 is Godzilla 2000.
Okay.
Where do you guys?
I
have
could
it?
probably match you on that. I had it at 28, but to be honest,
Yeah, not a significant.
Get this. I also had it at 28.
Wow. Now I'm too low on it.
Yeah. Stop being such a grump, Ryan.
I'm a little worried because for the most part I've been lower than you guys so far. So I'm like, what's down here? What have you guys put down here where I
buckle
have
up.
this stuff?
I don't think Joanna and I are going to agree either. I think you're going to get some unexpected ones from each of us.
yeah. I want you guys to actually take 1 second to think in your brain what you think I put last, and then when it's revealed, I want you to tell me what you thought.
I am so curious. I can't even make a guess at this point, but
Okay.
I'll try to have one in my head.
I think
Okay,
Joanna's
perfect.
got Biolante way down here. That's what I think.
Oh, but last, I'm not sure.
I think there's a devious side to her that knows that that's the favorite of people, and she's like, she's at number 32. That's what I think.
Including us. But yeah, we're on Godzilla 2000 for now.
That's right.
This is the one that I remembered the least about, which is not a good sign because we watched it last year.
I didn't remember a thing about it.
Yeah, I will say that the things I do remember are largely positive, like Orga trying to swallow Godzilla. I remember there was a scene where they were driving through a tunnel and they almost rammed into Godzilla's head. He's like poking his head in the tunnel.
Oh, that was that
That was
one.
cool.
I do remember the progenitor. I do remember that kind of plot point of the aliens wanting something. But again, in terms of doing good alien plots, not the best. That this series is.
There's no cackling villains here. The aliens, in the American version, they don't communicate at all. And in the Japanese version, you just see like stuff on computer screens a couple times.
Yeah, there's
so
no
they're not-
roaches. There's no cool
No.
costumes. If you're gonna do aliens, you gotta lean in.
Yeah. But yeah, I also like the sassy little girl and the Godzilla healing factor reveal. I still think that's a cool concept. So from what I remember, I don't think it's that badly made, but there's just so few memorable moments or highlights, and I remember being very confused about the plot, like even more than usual. And because it was relatively serious, the plot matters. If a movie goes full goofy, it's okay if I get confused.
Right.
But on this tonal level, it needs to kind of make sense, and I don't think it did.
Do you guys remember how big of a deal the Millennium was? Because this came out in 1999. Do you guys remember how
Yes.
big of a deal that was?
Of course, I had a Scholastic magazine, Beat the Y2K Bug.
I had a special like purple glittery dress with stars on it that matched my American Girl doll to ring in the new year in case the planet ended. Like I was gonna be looking good.
Which you do mention in that episode.
Hell yeah, informative.
Callbacks.
So
Thank
I
you,
listened.
American Girl doll.
I listened to my review of this movie because I also remembered not a ton about it. I listened to my own review, and it was interesting to hear because I actually feel the same way now that I kind of did then, which is that it's kind of mostly pretty unremarkable. It's kind of about as middle of the road and kind of mediocre in totality as these get. That said, and we'll get to this, I think people really dunk on this one and kind of find it to be this big disappointment. And I think it's in a run of Godzilla films that, to me, is probably the worst run of 4 or 5 movies of the whole series. And it is not the worst one
agree.
for me. And we've named Space Godzilla already. So most people would agree with that. But so I just don't think, like I'm not psyched on it, but in relative terms, I'm not that mad at it, and I think that there are two, without getting too much into it, 2 movies near it in chronological order that I would say are at least very close in quality for me. And I'm not just doing this to be contrarian. I actually think this. So it's not great, but like, it's okay.
Yeah, I feel for all of us that this was like the slowest part of watching the series. Like that this was a little bit of a slog and where I kind of fell into, oh no. I think this is where we got called out by the crowd for being too negative. But
to be slightly vulnerable, I'm sorry, so to be slightly vulnerable, it wasn't a big fear, but I had a tiny fear that you were going to quit the podcast around this time. So
Me?
Sam?
Yeah.
I'm the most positive one on the podcast. I'm here.
You are here. Again, not a major fear. I was just like, after a few of these episodes, I was like, God, am I gonna have to talk him into it?
I wouldn't have gotten.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have gone like 27 out of 38 movies. Or
Yeah,
even
you
more.
can't give
Actually,
it
it's
that
probably like
point.
31 out of 38. I'm not leaving at that point.
Yeah. But I do think, this is where I feel like the fans started to feel like we just hated all of it, and it's like it wasn't true. These rounds are just, they have less going on. They're like not terribly bad enough to almost be funny towards the bottom, and they're also just not doing much to be exciting.
No, and honestly, the first off, I don't think I've changed on how positive I am about them. I think like it's just more interesting to do our best to bring criticism of them, and I think that they're, for the most part, I don't think there are any that I would be extremely effusive about in that run anyway. So I'm just bringing up criticisms because that's what we're doing. We can't just love it all the time. Also, I didn't love it all the time. So I actually am being negative, I guess. What am I saying? But I think this is...
But in a positive way.
For the most part, with I'd say the 90s to the early 2000s, is the era of Godzilla that I think rested on its own laurels the most. Where it kind of feels like they're all just kind of remixes of stuff we've seen. With a couple exceptions. But they just feel the most referential to themselves. And you don't get a lot of them cutting loose. And I think that sort of wore on me a little bit, where I was just kind of like, even the ones that are better than others, there are a couple that'll be coming up that I'm more positive on. It's still kind of like, oh, that's like a nice, decent remix of a decent Godzilla movie. So I think that
still
kind of
the same, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's Godzilla 2000 kind of feels that way. There isn't a lot of really fresh stuff in it. It does use a lot of CGI for the first time.
Ryan, which kind of time period would you deem as generally your least favorite portion of the franchise?
The same. The way I would put it is actually harsher than Sam, where they're the most commercially obsessed period of Godzilla, where they were just like, how can we sell toys?
And Ryan bought them.
I did, and spend the least amount of money possible. Like, I don't get the impression that the people involved with Godzilla were that passionate about it at this time. There are a lot of people who disagree, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But we got to move on. We've been stuck on this too long. Oh, but first, Sam, you had this on Purgatory. Where's this going?
By my current metric, it's got to be hell. But stay tuned.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Positive
tuned. Sammy's coming back later.
Wait, Sam, this mysterious ranking, I feel like you gotta, off the pod, let me know what you're up to, because I don't want to look like a slacker. I only have one, heaven and hell list. I'm curious to create a new one too.
I'm just trying to keep people interested until the end of this 3.5-hour podcast.
Exactly. All right, 30. This is the end of this grouping for me. So honestly, it could easily be part of this higher group, but it is down here in the bottom 8, and it is Godzilla Final Wars.
Which number is this for you? 30?
30.
Damn, yeah. I'm 31.
God,
so close.
We keep missing each other by a hair.
I just want to highlight one more movie on the list. All three of us.
I'm 25 for what it's worth on this one.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, but I mean, it could go anywhere, and I think I don't think this one's a very good movie personally. So I could see it. I could see it going anywhere in here. The only contention for me having at 25 as opposed to some of these lower ones is that it is hilarious, and it is the only one. It's the most singular Godzilla movie, at least of that era. It's the only one that looks and feels like that, like a Matrix ripoff with anime-haired villains and backflips and a motorcycle fight.
And this like Russian Game of Thrones captain man, whoever that guy was. I don't really, to be honest, I don't remember this film at all. Most of these late 90s, early 2000s, besides obviously one, which we will get to, I don't remember really much. But yeah, they made choices. I'll say that they at least made some choices.
That's very true. I was going to say, in theory, this should be my favorite Godzilla movie. Or not my favorite. Among my favorites. But unfortunately, the director wanted to make Matrix 4 instead of a Godzilla movie. So all the fun Godzilla stuff is glazed over, and all the monsters except Godzilla, Gigan, and Minya have like zero personality, basically. They're interchangeable boogeymen, which is the worst thing you can do. I love how the monsters have little personalities and they interact. It doesn't matter in this, and instead you got like boring, bad Star Wars and Matrix ripoff scenes. It's not interesting, really. But you're right. There is a solid shot of silly fun in here. Don Fry is great. Akira Takarada, our handsome boy, he's good in it. I like the fun Minya scenes. There's just only like 2 of them. So if you like it a lot, I get it. Believe me, it just steps on too many landmines, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I'll tease this. It's actually, I have it in a new non-hell and non-heaven category with one other movie that is directly. It's effectively purgatory, but not. At 25, in the number 24 movie, which we haven't gotten to yet. It's a category of 2 movies that I'm calling hell, but I'll gladly watch it from heaven.
Oh, okay.
and because it's a hell, it's really, by all objective ways I can look at it, it's not great, but it is remarkable. And I like when I looked at these and I compared it to some of the ones I had below it, I went, yeah, but I would put it in the background of a party before some of these others. Like, I'm just saying, like, it's, it is hilarious, and I'm glad it exists in its own crazy way. So yeah, I'm with you guys more or less. I couldn't quite understand someone having it in like their top 10 in a real way, but I could understand you having it lower than I have or a little higher.
Yeah, totally. And you had it on purgatory, so you just took care of that.
It's now in hell, but I'll gladly watch it from heaven.
Yeah. You let it hang out, say, outside St. Peter's Gate. You don't send him away.
Yeah.
Like, we'll give it like a work visa to come fix my plumbing in heaven, so we can hang out with it a little bit, and then he's got to
Back it goes. All right, this is my second big chunk, which I called narrow niche recommendation. Whereas I'm like, all right, if the person is into this specific kind of thing, I can recommend it.
What was your first section called?
Hard to recommend.
Yeah.
And we're kicking it off with probably my hottest take so far.
Oh no.
29, I have Godzilla 2014, the Gareth Edwards movie.
Joanna.
I have this movie as last on my list.
Wow!
I fucking hate this movie. It is so boring. The actors are doing nothing, and the plot is doing nothing but being self-serious and boring. Snooze fest.
Wow, I thought I was going to get some hate mail, but Joanna just took all the heat off of me.
Last on the list.
Wow.
Last below even the anime.
Yeah, because at least the anime was trying to do something. It didn't achieve it, and we didn't like it.
Wow. All right, and then Sam, where did you have it?
This
Did you
is
guys
going to
think that
shock
was last
you.
on my list?
I had no idea. No idea. I'm not surprised now.
Yeah, it was not in the 2 or 3 I was thinking it might be. So yeah, I'm a little surprised, but only a little.
Guys, this is going to be crazy.
Oh,
by the way,
no, it's
I feel
number
like
9
most
on this
people
list.
like this movie quite a bit.
They do.
Yeah,
I'm lower on it than most.
that's why I said it was a hot take.
I have it at 14.
Wow.
This is the biggest disparity.
So
for
far,
sure.
biggest disparity.
Wow. All right. Well, I will freely admit that from a technical perspective, this is well made. It has a point of view and a visual language. I just happen to really dislike that point of view and the story that goes with it. You have a total dirty dishwasher protagonist, Ford truck, and a helpless wife getting most of the runtime over the at least mildly interesting characters
Yeah.
that Bryan Cranston, Sally Hemings, and Ken Watanabe played.
Yep.
Not much monster stuff. A supposedly serious story, but that was still toothless because it offers a big shrug about nuclear responsibility, which is annoying. Those are my complaints. I will levy heavily against it.
Yeah. Sam.
Go ahead, Joanna. You
I
already
was
said you
gonna
have
say
it
you go
last.
first. You go first. You try to defend it. And
No,
then
so
I'll-
my defense of it. So first off, I have it at 14, which is sort of still middle of the pack. It's middle high in the pack, and it's what Ryan said. It is technically really well made. It has sequences that if you just sort of forgot who the characters were, you would go, these are good, effective monster sequences that are like probably some of the best in the series. Like it's got probably the best parts of any of the American movies. I think it's got good stuff. It's just I do find the characters to be awfully bland. I mean, it really holds it back. It could have been a lot better, but I actually like the kind of movie it's trying to be. I don't think it's horrible. I'm more positive than the other two on this, I guess. But yeah, it's like, to me, it's like a well-made movie that's being held back by bland characters. But this is a series that has a lot of bland characters. Like, let's all be real. Like, these are especially bland, but legacy problem.
You're sadly right, but I will say it bothers me more because it makes the space to be so serious and down to earth. So if you're gonna do that for me, you better have better characters.
That's what
than
I
the
feel.
rest of the
And you
series.
have the money, you have the technology to make it look good. It's not these like earlier films they're using stock footage and just trying to tumble something together. I think they like really thought they were making something, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, I think that character was just like one of the most dull characters I've ever seen on a screen. And I feel like for me, it's always the characters that pop in this series and in general that kind of lead a lot for how much I'm into it or not. Elizabeth Olsen, I usually love and have seen her in stuff that she's fantastic in. So I think just, yeah, again, last on the list. But, for those of you who love it, come at me. And I'm happy to continue.
This was the hardest part of the list for me to judge, because it's like, it's surrounded by several movies where I'm like, yeah, I have kind of pleasant memories of that, but it's not like remarkably excellent in any one point. And then you have something like this that's like, it has some of the finest pieces of any of these, and also such a glaring weakness to me. So it's kind of like, I had kind of no idea where to put it in here, but I almost went, for the strengths that it has, I almost want to I kind of bumped it up into a group where it's, just because on its strengths alone. Go ahead.
Can I have you guys guess the budget for this film? I think that's also a ratio I always am looking at, is budget compared to successful narrative.
That's fair.
Just guess.
I remember it being like 120, I think.
Sam?
Oh, I was going to guess a little lower. I was thinking like 100.
$160 million.
That's a lot of money.
For that boring. Anyways,
these are all just opinions.
No, I'd love to hear the counter opinions. And Sam, I also I appreciate everyone's opinions.
I put it at 14. It's not that high. It's not in my top 10. It's in the middle.
It's pretty high. It's very close to top
really
10.
high.
Stop trying to downplay it.
It's below.
Really high.
It's immediately below one that many lists have as one of the bottom 3. That's what I'll say. So come on, let's.
So 2014, we're all over the map on. Good to know.
Yeah. And here, I'll say this. I'm sure I'm biased because I'm kind of pissed off at how well liked this is, because I don't get it. And because they stole my script ideas.
That's right. That's right.
So-
And that's why it's last for me, Ryan. Okay, I'm just sticking up
Thank
for
you. Thanks for backing me up.
There's exactly what Ryan is saying. Just keep this in mind because there's the Sam version of this coming at some point soon. And that's all I'll say.
Got it. Interestingly, we were all on purgatory for this one.
Oh, what? I put
Yeah.
this in purgatory? Well, you know where it's going for me.
Yeah.
Clear hell.
If
What a
if we
softy I
could
was.
if we could still do purgatory, I would grudgingly put it in there. But since I now have to sort them out, it's going to hell for me.
And I guess for Sam, it's a heaven.
Yeah, it's a heaven on its best parts. That's what I say. And we'll just
Again,
forget the
you're not
characters.
crazy. You're not crazy. 28 is Godzilla versus Megalon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
29
How
for
about
me.
you guys? Oh,
Whoa.
very close. Very close.
You guys, well, this will make sense. I hit it at 13
Yeah, it makes sense.
Let's go.
for me. Because I wrote another kid classic.
It is a kid classic.
Jet Jaguar, are you kidding me?
Yeah, on one hand, it is a lot of silly fun for most of the runtime. But on the other hand, you have an extremely cheap, miserable, and incoherent, stupid movie here. So there was only so high I could put
Let me
it.
be clear. For sure, a cheap and stupid movie. But a fun one at that. With a great little character who looks so close to a Power Ranger. And a fun little boy riding a silly floating device that's too far out in the sea to be safe.
Great
And
floating
I
device.
think- yes, and
Yeah.
and I think did Jet Jaguar have a theme song, or did I make that up?
Oh yeah, of course.
Hey.
I can't sing the Japanese, but dun 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 dun.
See,
Dun, 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 dun.
and is this? It says punch, punch, punch on the internet. Why can't-
Yeah.
whatever that is.
Something.
You guys chat for a second. I'm gonna listen to this on the side too.
All right.
Sure.
Okay.
What I'll say is that if, like, in terms of ramshackle film quality, like, this could be pretty interchangeable with some of the ones on the bottom of my list.
Yeah.
But partially because of the 70s of it, I think I'm not kinder, but I like the look and feel of some of the 60s and 70s ones, and there's a sort of a spirit to them that brings me a little more warmth and comfort. So and like I actually have it right next to, I have it not too far from Terror of Mechagodzilla. I have it one above Terror of Mechagodzilla, and that's it right there. Am I going to go with the dark, kind of gloomy one, or this thing that is like probably even a little crappier, but also, you can't get mad at that. It's a boy running a duck. He throws an airplane at a guy and it hits him in the face. Like, come on.
And you guys, the theme song, I just remembered. It's this kind of like jazzy 70s guy being like Jaguar. Like he sounds like he's like smoking a cigar in a jazz lounge, but while simultaneously doing a kid's theme song. So bonus points for that. I might even have to bump it up higher.
I mean, I generally have a good time watching this, especially when I keep in the context like all the stuff we talked about in that episode, like the crazy marketing in America and how it became so popular basically just by dint of that marketing. The final fight is not a series highlight, but it is genuinely fun and peppy. Like, well done considering how long it goes on and how little money they had. It is not my favorite Bad Godzilla movie anymore. After watching it with you guys pointed out some holes in that place where I really enjoyed it, and so that knocked it down a few pegs. But I will totally still watch this every couple of years, especially the Mystery Science Theater version. So it's low. Its placement is lower than I would enjoy it. If this was pure enjoyment factor, it would jump up a number of slots for me. It's
Where
just
did
so
we place it?
bad.
Do you have where we ranked it all?
Yes, this is going to surprise you.
Oh no.
Sam and I had it at heaven. You had it at purgatory.
Wait, I put this in heaven? Man, it's not quite enjoyable enough for me to be like a delightful bad movie. And in fact, Final Wars I actually find to be a little bit more entertaining as a bad movie. If even more incoherent, arguably. I actually have Final Wars a little ahead of it.
Yeah, I get it. It's taste. And again, it's not my favorite anymore. It's still high up there though.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching it as a piece of schlock.
It's a movie
Bless
that I
it.
would watch again on this list for sure. So that is
Yeah.
big for me.
And just so we can have it on tape, I assume you move it up to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, I think.
Well, because I can't put it in hell. Yeah.
No, of course not. The
That's
hot
the
takes
highest-
keep on coming.
That's the highest ranking we've
Go ahead.
had of anything so far. Joanna putting a movie
Yeah,
at
we
13.
We haven't hit above 13 yet, which is good that we aren't that far apart yet.
I think I'm going to be the first one that Ryan's going to say something on this list, and I'm going to be like, actually, that's in my top 10.
It may be. It may be. I don't think this next one will be, though. At 27, I have Godzilla versus Destroyer.
That is a controversial take, Ryan. That's a fan favorite.
It is a controversial take. Where did you put it, Sam?
I have it at 31. This is the
I
time.
have it at...
Oh, go ahead.
What do you have, Joanna?
No, I have it at 18. But this
Oh,
was
okay.
this whole 14 to 25 for me is a little, give or take.
All right. I will say that does surprise me, but anyway, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, I was just going to say that this is the point. This is the first one I know is going to be controversial from me. And I just want to say two things. First of all, I am not trying to be controversial. Plus, Ryan's on my side on this one, more or less. So,
Yeah.
two of us can't be trying to be controversial. I'm not trying to be a contrarian. My list is genuinely how I feel. And I think there's something good in all of them. That said, it's among my least favorites of the series. I found it. I liked like a couple of the ideas in it, but I found it to be kind of a little bit of a chore. I'm not high on this one, as evidenced by the 31.
Yeah, as evidenced. Yeah, this is another case for me where I like what you were going for, bro. The question of what to do about Godzilla and Meltdown, whether he deserves our help, what humanity will do without him, those sorts of things are interesting, as is the idea of a monster spawned by an oxygen destroyer. But considering that this had a longer than average lead time than most Godzilla movies prior to like this modern era, it really should be better. The story really should be more impactful and have more exciting stuff in it, because it is awfully bland considering the blessing that it got. Just in terms of it still has way too many characters that have no distinguishable personality. The action is generally good, but kind of tepid, especially in the middle. I don't know. It's just a whiff. It's a disappointment. I want it to be much better than it is.
I think my sentiment can kind of land on that. So I think that the space on my list, like, it's 18, but not a high 18. I would say that there wasn't, again, a few of these middle ones kind of all sit in a space of like, they tried for something and maybe didn't pull it off too well. I liked that they hired a high schooler to solve the problem. That was funny to me then and remains funny to me now. Did Junior Godzilla save Godzilla's life, or did I make that up?
No, Godzilla melting down brought Junior back to life. He absorbed all the
the
radiation.
opposite. He observed it. Okay, sweet. Very
He gets kind of like a
precious.
Zorro
That is very
silhouette
precious.
ending.
Yeah, that's true. That
the-
is cool.
The practical effects of Godzilla melting down are neat. I will say that was a highlight, I think, for me. But I'm this is one of those, I like the ideas, and in execution found them all less interesting than maybe they should have been. So pretty much in line with Ryan and a little lower.
Yeah. I think maybe because I like Destroya. I really do just think Destroya's a neat monster.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Wish he had a more exciting movie.
Yeah. True. And hey, fans, I do still get misty at the ending. There's no question. I am a fan deep down in my heart. I can't help but get a little verklempt
emotional
when Godzilla goes down. It's sad.
Yeah.
Just this movie is sadder.
It really is.
Joanna, you and me were on Purgatory. I actually don't know what I'm gonna say here.
Oh, I'll probably put it in hell.
Is this Ryan's? This is his dividing line here.
This is my dividing line.
From here on out, it's over or under Godzilla versus Destroya.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, don't hate me. This is the narrowest of hells.
Whoa.
No. There's too many left to go. I gotta make a line.
They can't all be heavens, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We gotta be distinguishing the finest, the best of the best.
Yep. And 26, in a decision that is sure to piss off a few listeners, I have Godzilla 98 above Destroyer.
Whoa! Let's go, Ryan.
Let's fucking go.
You guys have really changed my mind.
Would you have? Genuine question. Would you have said that before doing the podcast with Joanna and me?
No.
Let's go.
No.
Joanna, look what we did.
Okay, wait. I want Ryan to guess where each of us ranked it.
I'm scared you both put it in your top 12.
Oh, it's for sure. It's
Top
for sure
12.
in Joanna's top 10. No question.
Top 10.
Alright, let me
narrowing it
have
down.
it. Where are they?
Sam, you go first.
So it's 24 for me. So I'm really not that far off.
Oh,
from you.
alright. Okay.
And I'll just say it's the other one in my it's my other dividing line with Final Wars. I have it one spot ahead of Final Wars, and it's like I admit that it can't be a heaven in terms of being a good movie, but you know, I like it. I kind of enjoy watching it. So
I have it at... Wait, guess.
number 4.
Is it top 5?
Number 5.
Let's go. Oh, I'm so energized.
I
right now, guys.
wrote a classic, multiple exclamation points. One of the best in my notes.
Oh no.
Because I would say if I'm looking at my top 10, it's a mix of really good ones, really good like classic nostalgia ones, and 98 is undeniably a one that is known by fans of the franchise. It is like a key player. It exists in this universe. It stands alone. It's stupid and it made choices. So
It sure does stand alone. No one can deny that.
it's not even Godzilla, maybe. You could probably make a strong argument for
His
that.
name's a Gino.
And for that reason, you know, it's set in New York City, a place I love.
The city that never sleeps.
City that never sleeps. A classic Broadway actor singing in the rain. So many positives.
Yeah, I mean, no question, it's a horribly misguided, badly made movie. Because there's so many moments where it's trying to be cool, and instead it is pathetic and silly. But it is quite often silly and funny, which makes it an extremely good bad movie. This is in my top pantheon of good bad movies.
And I feel like that is the distinguishing factor between 2014 and 98 is 2014 is like trying to do something and doesn't, but still remains so self-serious. 1998 is like trying to do something and doesn't, but has fucking Matthew Broderick as the lead and like a silly little snake dinosaur as Godzilla. So like it's almost trying so hard that it does then cross over the bridge to being bad and fun because of it.
I'm gonna disagree with you on one point, Ryan, which is that actually I don't think it's. I mean, in some ways, I guess you could say it is, but I don't think it's that badly made. I if anything, it's even crazier that it's incredibly misguided, but made by the top Hollywood professionals, you know, at the top of their craft. Which, do you know what I mean? Because like,
it's so funny.
Yes, no, technically it is well made. I'm saying the decision making. I'm including. That is a factor in how well the movie is made, and that's where I'm saying it was badly made.
Sure,
go on.
The distinguishing factor between it and Final Wars, my semi purgatory but not really purgatory on my list, is that Final Wars is, you know, like almost. I don't want to say this sounds mean, but like it's pretty sloppy. And like 98 is like a glossy, big Hollywood, you know, blockbuster. And it is almost as insane and silly and you know, kind of unintentionally funny. And for that, I actually I have it a spot higher. But yeah, we're pretty close on that one. I have a good time with 98, and I think if people felt it in their hearts, if they could open their hearts to the possibility that maybe it's not really a Godzilla movie, but just take it, meet it where it's at, you'll have a good time.
Take it
it's
loosely.
good.
And I think it's 5 on the list, mainly on vibes and mainly on the recognition and awareness that it's kind of a Godzilla movie, but like kind of not really. Kind of it's just a movie that happened to make its way onto the list. And
it really is Godzilla in name only.
I had a lot of fun. I love.
But yeah, I mean,
I love an end of the world New York City. You know, it's a regular day after tomorrow for me. You know, it's all the same.
Same director.
Yeah.
Wait,
they wanted.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
There you go. Yeah.
I do every day.
That's why you like it so much.
That is.
No, and there are parts like he's good at what he does. Like there are good parts. You know, you get like that awesome scene of Godzilla like launching individual planks of the dock as the fisherman is running, and you're like, that's wonderful. And then you get the scene where Matthew Broderick and the reporter love interest are buying birth control.
Bad.
And you're like, pregnancy tests. That's what I was. Yeah, you're just like, these are the same movie. It's so much fun.
and you get that's a lot of fish, which
that's
is,
a lot of fish.
It's just
classic
iconic.
line.
So thank you, everyone, for agreeing with me. Number 5,
Highest ranking thus far.
I knew, and didn't I say
That
I was
is
like,
true.
I will be the first one to break Brian's top 10.
Yeah,
and,
you're gonna be the first one to go top 10.
and I
You're
knew
right.
it would be the 98 film to do it.
Yeah, I mean, just as much as I love the joke, if I was going purely off entertainment value, this would be in maybe top 12.
Let's go. Possibly
But-
same. Probably same.
Oh my
Yeah.
god! Welcome.
Here's why it has to be down here. It's a genuine slap in the face as a Godzilla fan. You have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, it totally
it's
is.
just insulting, and the movie is genuinely bad. So 26 is the best I can do. Next 25 is Godzilla versus King Ghidorah.
Interesting.
How about you?
I got that at 20, and I have some kind of positive memories of that one.
I do too. This next bunch is maybe the most interchangeable of them all in my list. But I'll tell you why. I always get really hung up on the 2 long, boring stretches in this movie.
Yeah.
Everything before the time travel starts is boring. And the stretch between King Ghidorah coming back and his fight with Godzilla is boring. They're way more dull than they should be, and something's just not clicking. But this is the true balance point of good and bad for me. It's like the scales are about as flat as they can be. And most of the bad stuff is enjoyable. Like the completely nonsensical time travel the goofy laser battle in any scene that M11
I was
is.
going to say M11
Yes,
is
M11.
a top 10 character of the franchise.
I'd say top
Even if
11.
the movie doesn't.
Top 11.
Wait, and this
right
is
there.
the one. This is the one with that psychotic motorcycle scene, right?
Where no, it's the motorcycles is Final Wars, but this does have a scene where M11
Oh, it's the
runs
car.
after them like the Terminator and
Yeah.
pulls the door off of it.
He's
yeah.
he's top 20. Sorry, I was thinking of a different agent, but he's for sure. Yeah, he's special.
Yeah.
No, actually, I also
I-
misspoke. It's 21 for me, not 20. But same, more
Yeah.
or less the same.
And I had it at 26. So Ryan, once again, so close.
Yeah, just off of it.
If only you had put 98 at 25. And
If only I'd swapped them, I
Yeah.
could have, frankly. But no, this is spoiling something that's about to happen. But 98 is my final hell, and this is my first heaven.
Wait.
So
Oh wait, but okay, so it's top of the hell list technically.
yes, right at the top of it.
Oh, that hurts that you're putting it on.
It's the
Okay.
top of my hell, also, for what it's worth.
Oh,
But I am with Ryan. I love it, but it's almost only appropriate to put it in hell in a weird way. It's
Yeah.
it's
It's
like
gotta
change your mind if you want.
it's like the finest that hell can offer.
Well, Joanna, he's poking his little Shere Khan chin out over
Yeah.
the top of
Well,
hell.
the best that heaven could be.
Where to next?
But yeah, those
Oh, sorry,
those
go
two stretches. I was just gonna wrap up. Those two stretches ruin it. Well, not ruin it, but partially ruin it for me. But totally valid Godzilla movie, and the stuff with Emmy and Mecha Ghidorah is genuinely great. That's a good scene. I salute it. Next we have. Oh wait, we were all on Purgatory for this one. I just basically gave up the ghost. I'm going heaven.
It's the bottom of my
Hell, I
heaven
guess.
also.
All right,
I'm
hell
in
for
heaven.
you, Joanna.
Yeah,
All right, okay.
I like Emmy too. I mean that. Yeah, hell.
Yeah. 24 is Godzilla versus Mothra: The Battle for Earth. In that episode, I said I would put it exactly one notch over King Ghidorah, and that's exactly what I did.
Well, interestingly
Wait,
enough.
is this is not? Oh wait.
Oh, go ahead.
This is the 1990s Mothra versus Godzilla.
Oh, the Battle for Earth.
1992.
So Ryan,
Interesting.
we're not too far off because it is 22 for me, exactly one below King Ghidorah.
Coming together.
Yep. Because this is the pinnacle of what I said earlier about. I think it's actually the start of the era of 90s to early 2000s Godzilla movies that just feel like them kind of just remixing the classics, just remixing the hits. It's like a perfectly serviceable but pretty safe movie that it's like it's good, but there aren't a lot of great moments for me.
I think. Where's the one where the boy hides in the chicken?
That is Mothra's debut, which we are technically not putting on this list.
But I will say where I'd put it anyway when we get
Yeah.
there.
So,
I think-
we
so-
already passed where Rodan would be for me.
Same.
I would put it like below Megalon, like somewhere around Megalon 2014. Anyway, sorry, Joanna, go ahead. And you didn't say your placement yet either, so you should say that.
Well, I have it as 15, but I need to be honest. I think I thought it was for sure the movie where the boy went into the chicken. So I'm just gonna say, similar to my Destroy at 18. I'm gonna say my whole 11 to 20. Besides Jet Jaguar at 11, I don't know. Anyways, I think this is inaccurate. 13, but I don't know where I'd put it because then it's gonna fuck with my whole list. So I'm just gonna say it'd be in the 20s.
Yeah.
I thought you said Megalon was 13. Have you switching things around already?
No, Megalon's 11.
Okay, Megalon's 11. Got it. All right.
It could have been 2 in my Excel doc. It's line 13, but it's ranked 11. So maybe I
I
missed.
see. Maybe you said the line. Yeah.
But 98 is for sure accurately 5.
All right. Okay.
That's what's important.
That's what's important here. So I like that this movie gets off to a quick start with a simple a simple trio of characters who have some conflict between each other. It's a good way to kick it off. I like the pacing of the special effects scenes, how they're spaced out, and the final battle. There's something like a character arc in this. So I would say if Ghidorah had the scales totally flat, good is slightly winning out here, slightly heavier. But the bad stuff is less amusing. When it's bad, it's just kind of dull. But I enjoy it slightly more overall. I'm sure the Mothra bias helps as well.
This one is pretty standard, decent, decent if unremarkable to me. If someone said I love that one, it's a classic, I'd say yeah, that's fair enough. It does all the Godzilla things well. This was where I was feeling a little fatigued with too much of the same and not enough innovation.
Yeah, it is very much playing the classics. We all had it at Purgatory, so we all got to make a decision.
I'm gonna put it in hell.
Wow.
What?
Well,
all right, I'm putting it in heaven.
We're squarely in heaven for me too. So
because
all right.
Because if I'm not fully remembering it and am getting it confused with other better iteration of Mothras, then I don't know. I think that just has to be my guiding light.
Your guiding light. That's fair. Accept it.
And I said there are only going to be, of all the purgatories, 5 maybe that make it to heaven for me tonight.
Yeah, that's fair. 23 for me is Tokyo SOS. Where do you guys have it?
I have it at 16.
I have it at 34, my second worst non-anime.
Ooh. Oh, that hurts.
Was this the one where Mothra exploded into that beautiful golden explosion in the sky?
I think she does that in at least 3 movies.
No, there was one that was really impactful that I teared up, maybe cried.
It's probably this then, because it was like right when her kids, to protect her babies.
Yeah, and that's why I stand by it at 14, despite the fact that for Godzilla vs. Mothra, the battle for Earth, I don't stand for it at 13. But for SOS 14,
You'll stand up for
the main highlight I just remember is that I was a little emotional.
Yeah. Before we get to Sam's sacrilege, I do have a real nostalgia bias for Tokyo SOS, so I am frankly surprised it's this low. Again, you guys can take credit for moving it down for me, but I do find it genuinely more good than bad. The theme of giving up a weapon, even when it makes you feel unsafe, is quite interesting, even if it's pretty surface level. Yeah. The battles are fun. The cinematography is strong.
Is it?
But it is.
I thought that glowing light scene was beautiful.
It just takes a while to get going, and I find the main character of Chujo bad in a genuinely embarrassing way. So those things dragged it down for me. All right, I'm scared, but Sam, have at it.
No, I mean, once again, I said this about some of my lowest ones, that if someone said, "Oh, I really like that was a childhood favorite," I would say that's fair. Yeah, I could totally see it. This one is a combination to me of being quite unremarkable and also not as well made. And I also want to say that it's made by the team that made 2 that I have higher, 1 especially higher. Same director, same cinematographer, same editor. So it's not always just like, this isn't a diss on them. It's so many things factor into it, I think it's kind of shoddy. Obviously it's in my memory, but I remember being like, boy, there's just not a lot here for me. And when I have it next to Raids Again. Raids Again actually has a little bit more for me. So yep. But some things gotta go at the bottom, and there's just not much. It's not for Sam. This one's not for Sam.
No.
But other ones by this team were. So
It hurts. It hurts.
You have it at like 20 something, so it's not like we're doing insane. You clearly don't think it's that great.
But it's close to my heart. Anyway, maybe I'm projecting. Maybe I feel pained that I put it this low.
You guys, I'm getting really nervous about the top 10. I'm like, I don't know that we're gonna have any other ones that we have the same alignment on.
I'm a little nervous too, but we must move on. At 22, I have Godzilla versus Megaguirus.
That low for you, Ryan? Interesting.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I'm being my scrutinizing critic, but like basically from this point on, I enjoy all these movies with few reservations.
That's fair.
Which number is this for you?
22.
Okay, I have it at 19 because that chick shooting that missile at Godzilla at the beginning and just their name, what were they? The G Graspers? And the dimension tied weapon. Again, they were just bringing a lot of fun, made up shit into this that I had a good time with.
I've got this one at 27. It's the one. It came out right after Godzilla 2000, and I have it one spot above Godzilla 2000. But I know that people like this one, so I thought that might be a controversial one for me. But I find it to be also have some good ideas, but I don't think in totality it quite gets there. It's kind of sort of the top of hell for me.
I'd agree that it like doesn't quite get there. It more just had, I think, what was the year that it was made? Did you say
2000?
Okay, so I think in that realm of late 90s, early 2000s, like I think that it just had a little more charisma is maybe the word I'll use than some. I mean, not than the Matrix one, obviously, but there's also one shot where the lead woman is like riding Godzilla as he's like swimming on the water. And so I feel like the stuff like that was just very, very fun.
I'm not surprised you have it relatively higher, Joanna, because it's basically a 60s throwback.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
like a throwback to that era, which is its big strength. The black hole plan and like this very horror B-movie flavored invasion of the giant insects. That's good pulpy nonsense. I like it.
That is totally what it felt like a throwback to.
Yeah. But I also get Sam because this movie is bizarrely incompetent from a technical aspect. Like, it's most famously, we talked about the non-ending where the credits just start rolling at the most random moment.
Craziest ending in the series, even. But you know,
but even beyond that, it's not shot that well.
No, I don't think so either. But again, this is another one by that same team I was saying, as same director, same cinematographer, and their other one is actually quite a bit higher without spoiling anything for me. So not a diss on them. It's it's a complicated casserole of factors that can go into a movie. And it is. Right. I have it a little higher than several from that era. I mean, I have it one spot over 2000. Yeah. I have it over Destroya. I have it over Space Godzilla. So, you have it over Tokyo SOS. So, I'm not super high on it, but it's among probably the better ones of its era, or at least of my favorites of that era, I guess you would say. Or at least
I think that's what favorites. I would say of it too. Like, not my favorite of the series by far, but of that era. Doing a little more of something and had a character that I could at least agree to get behind.
Right. She was a little plain, but she does get a character arc, which is
they had
rare.
cool outfits. It varied going back to the 60s, them having their cool little crew with their fun little outfits.
Solid thumbs up here. Just there's 21 better movies in my opinion. And the first of those at 21 is Godzilla versus Kong.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Where is it for you guys?
Joanna, where you got it?
Well, I mean, obviously it's going to be higher for me because it's Kong. I have it number 6.
Wow. All right. That's higher than I thought you would have it. You were not that high on it when we watched it.
I have it at 17
yeah, same.
for what it's worth.
Okay.
But I can imagine
I'm
having
consistently...
I imagine having it at 6 just on the title sequence alone. I mean, that opening, man.
That opening was amazing.
Gorgeous. So much love and passion put into it. And I'm not being sarcastic.
No, it's. I think I'm proud of it. That's probably among my favorite title sequences I ever worked on. So that.
And Sam's in this movie.
And I am in the movie. Wait, why don't I have it at number 1? What am I doing? Why is it at 17?
Exactly.
I wasn't a fan of it.
But you famously talk about how you were really hungover when you saw it.
No, that was a different one. Also
No, that
with
was
Millie
this one.
Bobby Brown.
Oh, that was King of the Monsters. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought it was this one.
No, it was
Alright.
King of the Monsters, because this one I remember just being fascinated with Hollow Earth, which I kept referring to as Middle Earth. But any Middle or Hollow Earth, I'm always fascinated with. I think it looks beautiful on screen, and I am a big old softie for Kong.
Yeah. I love Kong too. And I'll admit this. I could be putting too much bias on this one. I'm still bitter that people applauded this one when they wouldn't do it for the somewhat superior King of the Monsters, which is a fight I'm sure we'll get to.
Yes.
And then since New Empire came out, I just think, why isn't this one that goofy? Like, why didn't it go full ludicrous?
Right, why did it lean in?
Yeah, but trying to be objective, this is a fun, pulpy movie that makes some good choices. And all the battle scenes rock. The boat battle might be like the most genuinely, unapologetically good monster fight ever, although
So
it's not
good.
my favorite.
Yeah,
Sam,
yeah.
where did you have it?
I have it at 17, and I think it is. I think it's a little better than King of the Monsters myself, but to each their own. It's not like we're talking. It's not crazy to go either way. I agree.
Sure.
I think that some of the monster fights, especially, I think they're like the 3 fights between Godzilla and Kong are good and varied and exciting, and I think it's the last one they spent a lot of serious money on. I think like nothing in New Empire is quite as expensive and kind of grandiose as this. I kind of wish, personally, I wish that some of the characters were maybe either stronger or there were fewer, but again, it's that's that classic thing that we talk about on these. But overall, I have a good time with this movie, and the Admiral begins his expedition searching for an entrance to a new world.
One of the most memorable lines of the whole series.
I think too, because for me the modern movies, the 2014 and 2019 one, I was like so not into that. Then to be more into one, like really, I was kind of expecting I wasn't going to be, and then again, Hollow Earth, all that jazz. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's even a little bit of pathos there with Gia and Kong. That relationship is sweet.
100%.
So 21 feels like a good place for it, for me. And that wraps up that chunk of mine. Which brings us to 20 through 11, which I subtitled Recommend with Good Setup. Like, you probably have to spend 5 minutes explaining what's about to happen with each of these. But if you do, people will generally like it, I think. Here's one I'm a little worried about.
Here we go.
I feel like you guys are going to shame me for having it too low, and other people listening are going to shame me for having it too high. So this was really, really difficult to place. So don't be too mean to me. At 20, I have All Monsters Attack, aka Godzilla's Revenge.
Joanna.
Joanna's just trembling like she's going to explode.
It's wild. That's unfortunate.
I'm sure the inverse is going to happen later on.
It's number 3 on my list, and I don't think that's surprising at all.
No,
I wrote
not
each row,
surprising.
number 1 in my heart. I think, again, my top 10 is like a solid mix of 98 silly, which we've now revealed. Some of the films that are like genuinely good movie watches, and then some of the classics. And I think when I think about, for at least my take on the series, the classics that had silliness and fun and leaning into goofy things, and the silly toy maker character who's his friend, and a little child with a backpack going on adventures. I think it is, top of my list for one of the like quote unquote earlier, more classic ones. So that's why it sits at 3 for me.
I've got it at number 13.
Nice.
Yeah, and
Okay, right between us.
Right between us, and I'm surprised you have it this low, Ryan. But on the other hand, I know that if you look up most lists, it is like the last place
Not on it.
entry. It's always last. And the only thing I will say about this movie is I understand it has stock footage. I understand it's, it doesn't have it's different from the others. It feels like this weird other. I think of that as a strength and not a weakness, and I say that it is trying to be a kids movie, and aimed clearly for younger kids, and for what it's aiming for, I think it has delights. I think it's delightful, and yeah, I mean I have it one spot ahead of 2014 Godzilla, because I think it succeeds at what it's aiming for. And if you were 6 years old and you put this movie on, and you got to watch the tale of a latchkey kid who goes to an island and then deals Home Alone style with some thieves, you'd be like, this is great.
Yeah, and I think...
This was my favorite Godzilla movie when I was 6.
There you go.
Yeah, and I have a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old nephew right now who I'm like, I can't wait to maybe over the holidays watch this with them. I think that's a good way of putting it, Sam. It feels for me too, Ryan, like movies that are going to be in your top 10 are going to be probably more monster forward. This one feels a little less monster forward, but it wins my heart.
Yeah, it matters that this was my favorite when I was 6. I feel good about it, but let me explain why it's here, why I determined 20. It's extremely successful in a niche of a niche.
Yeah.
But the farther you get away for it, the more you can poke holes in it. Not only for the stock footage, but for the message being kind of uncertain and garbled, which is not good when you're making a kids movie. And yeah, just a tight appeal. So I couldn't bear to have it any lower than 20, but I just felt like everything above this had more to offer more broadly.
Ryan, I respect and appreciate you didn't put it lower than 20.
I couldn't.
Some real issues.
Yeah, you'd have
because
to
I don't have to tell you guys how much I love it.
Yes.
I do.
Yeah,
like for me, this sits above Minya, and you know that, but for you, that's not going to be the case.
No.
I wish it were. There's some stretches that are a little slow. I wish those were a little more interesting. I kind of always remember the beginning and the end. But that said, kids movie, different thing.
I think
Middle of the pack.
I think too, just within this world of like that scene where he is on his like little toy computer in his room and is like calling in, and then it's transported. It's just so classic and like feels so truly nostalgic and relatable to like what being a kid was, that it's so silly.
Yeah.
He's just like tapping on some computer thing. So
Yeah, I said this in the episode, but I watched this 30 years after it came out in a different country, in a rural home, not the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And I could still totally relate to and follow what Ichiro is going through. And I think that speaks to its effectiveness, that it could penetrate all those cultural barriers. And I obviously don't know, but I strongly suspect that it still could. I think you could show it to a 6-year-old.
I think you absolutely
and they
could.
would still like it.
And I almost think there's even, obviously, a lot of kids' films now are like zing, zang, zang, like 100 million miles happening. But I've watched some older kids' films with my nieces and nephews, and the slower pace of them, like, sometimes does kind of work for kids. Like, once they're in, they are kind of like they're not looking to watch, Inception. Like it kind of works that it's moving forward at a steadier pace.
Yeah, it gives kids some credit.
Mm-hmm. So if anyone listening has it in their top 10, please let me know, because I'm looking for some other folks who do, because there are not many.
All right. Just above it, at 19, I have Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. The 2002 one, just to be clear.
Dang, I have that at 20. Oh,
I keep zinging right by
Damn
you.
it.
Right by.
I have that at 12.
All right, that's
Heck
totally
yeah.
fair.
I think it's pretty good.
You want to open up on this one?
Oh, no. I think this is a, I would say it's a solid one. It's not crazy remarkable. I know I've had that as a criticism of like Godzilla versus Mothra, Battle for Earth, and some others, but I think is a kind of inspired back to basics Godzilla story that I think there are some actually surprisingly interesting scientist and politician scenes, and I think it's pretty engaging and feels kind of like, when you look at the ones that are just like, well, this is just normal people reacting to a Godzilla attack, it's kind of one of the better ones. It's nothing crazy, but at 12, outside the top 10, but solid. I think that's a pretty good showing for the old Zilla.
You know what? I think actually I am going to. What did you have it at? 13
I have it at 12.
or 12? I think I'm going to move it to 13, and I'm going to bump Godzilla vs. Mothra: The Battle for Earth up to 20. Now that I remember what the film is a little more.
All right, we're getting some more live revisions.
Yeah, live revisions.
I'm gonna be honest. The reason, or one of the primary reasons it's not higher for me, is I have trouble remembering too many specifics about this. But I know we were very high on it when we covered it last year, and I have a warm impression of it in my heart.
I think I remember too, with the kind of a classic arc that they created, right, of this female commander at the beginning, like members of her crew were killed, and then at the end, she had a lot of difficulty with that, and then at the end ended up being able to be the hero. I was there for that narrative too. Like, I felt that it did what it was meant to do.
That is one of the things I do remember. It is possible. I'm sure I'm going to find something later that contradicts it, but it is possible this has the strongest character arc of a Godzilla movie between the original and -1. Possibly.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the movies that at least has a clear through line of going for an arc. Like, sometimes I feel like the main character in these films kind of remains stagnant.
Yes, and the concept of the movie of Godzilla's haunted skeleton taking over a robot,
amazing,
is both hilariously ludicrous, but also, like, once you get over it, you're like, huh, that's pretty interesting. There's something to chew on there. So I like it. It's just clearly not all that grabby to me if I've already forgotten a bunch about it and we watched it last year.
Yes. That's okay. We've all been there.
Yeah. Can we go to... Oh, wait, well, Joanna, you were on Purgatory for it.
I was?
Yeah.
Shit, I guess I gotta put it in heaven, huh?
Yeah. You gotta put something in
first
heaven.
heaven of the night.
Welcome in heaven. Welcome in heaven. Jeez, I'm tired. Welcome to heaven, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla.
Welcome to heaven.
So, moving right along, at number 18, I've got Invasion of Astro Monster, aka Godzilla versus Monster Zero.
Ooh.
Which I suspect might also be at least a lukewarm take in the broader Godzilla world, but it does not click with me deep in my soul. There's just something that feels a little bland to me. Maybe it's the low monster screen time. I won't deny that I'm that base. But on the face of things, this is a pretty good one. There's fun characters. Nick Adams is like a weenie and a badass at the same time. I love him. The zillion aliens, all their costumes and sets are truly iconic. We got Godzilla flying through space like a curled up shrimp, as Sam famously said, battling on an alien planet. The plot truly makes no sense, but it's solid sci-fi stuff. That's where I land with it.
Couldn't agree more. Number 8 for me. This is squarely good old fashioned 60s Godzilla romp. I like it. It's not the best old fashioned 60s Godzilla romp, but I like it and I have fond memories of it.
I am in the same boat as Sam. I similarly agree, and it's number 10 for me. I said a lot of funky space stuff, and mainly, those outfits always pull things up on the rankings for me. And I also, this concept of like, give us the monsters and we will cure cancer for you. I just thought it's like such a silly exchange and like so not apples to apples, but they were like, yeah, like they kind of edited it with like 2 people and we're like, yeah, that's what we trust these guys. So very silly, very fun, amazing sunglasses. They were giving very Brat if you look back at it. And for that, they were going for gold.
Yeah, I mean, I just gotta interject. Not only is that trade bonkers, but there's no reason for it. The aliens have everything they need to just take Godzilla and Rodan without asking, but they go through the trouble of asking.
But, Ryan, they do have to ask because they put all the effort into their outfits. They can't just let them go to waste. They're not just going to be those aliens typing on a computer. That's not who they are.
Right, it's the art of the grift. You gotta practice the art before you do the grift.
Exactly.
They want to get off on this. Okay.
And there was also like a love story in there, right? Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Top 10. Ryan still.
And we hit Sam's top 10 for the first time.
We did.
100%.
So.
Woohoo!
I totally get it. It just something's not there for me.
It's the costume to monster ratio. That's exactly what it is. Which for me always wins, and for you less so.
Yeah. 17. We got a much more serious movie, Return of Godzilla, aka Godzilla 1985. And I forgot once again, Joanna, you and I had Monster Zero on Purgatory, but it's a heaven for me now, and I guess it's the same for you.
Heaven, baby.
Yeah.
Get on up there.
But yes, Return of Godzilla, Godzilla 1985. Joanna, do you want to go first on this one?
No. I had it at number 33 on my list.
Oh! Ouch.
To be honest, it's not one that like stuck in my memory too much, and I just remember there being a lot of Cold War-esque stuff, but not in a no kind of fun elements. Yeah, it just didn't like stick out that much to me, I guess, and that is really why I kind of put it lower on my list. But would love to hear, maybe something will spark my memory and I'll look back fondly on it.
I will, but first, Sam, what about you?
I'm close to you, Ryan. I have it at number 20. I have it one above Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and a couple below Godzilla vs. Kong. So, I think similar boat. I think it's pretty good, but I think it's pretty good, and I think it's another kind of back to basics, kind of simple Godzilla story. I think I like it a little less than the ones we've mentioned before, like Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, but I think it's pretty good. It's just a little on the unremarkable side too.
Interesting. I feel like it's very remarkable. It's just has some issues, but maybe that's the novelty factor for me, because this was the only one that I hadn't seen when we started the podcast. But it feels very unique as a Godzilla movie to me, because Biollante also came out at the tail end of the 80s, but this is the only Godzilla movie that feels like an 80s movie in terms of the culture and the aesthetics. And that's really interesting to me. I should say it's the characters that are unremarkable. The imagery is not. That's true. Is it the SpaceX? What's the ship? The Super X. The Super X.
Elon Musk flies a ship in it. Um, no, the Super X. That stuff was cool, and you're right. It is very 80s. The imagery is it definitely comes to mind. I had to look up who the characters were and what the actual plot was, because that
yeah, and I think that
definitely the weakness.
That was it, like, for me too, when it didn't like hold strong at all in my memory, and then when I went to look back at it, it was like there was this military conversation, and then they had this military conversation, and then the Soviets, and then there was this and that for me just always, when the characters aren't strong and it seems more kind of like a lot of science meetings, I don't know, science military meetings, lower on my list.
I'll agree on the science meetings because they make Godzilla seem really stupid, because the central premise of this is that Godzilla has a bird brain. But I like the military stuff in this, because it's not just useless, like, okay, we're going to dig a pit here and then drive Godzilla into it with the tank brigade. It's ominous, affecting stuff about the Cold War power struggle, about, like, how a country outside the US and the Soviet Union felt like being stuck between this intense, at that time, very hot power struggle. And it's still better idea than execution, but the execution is really not that bad most of the time.
You know what?
The weak stuff is the character stuff, unfortunately.
You're kind of making me question, and if I revisit this one, I will keep you posted.
Okay.
Because again,
if you
I
watch
just
it again
don't
someday, let me know.
remember it much, but I'm curious if I were to rewatch how much I would feel what you're feeling.
The stuff about the captain sacrificing himself to stop the missile, that stuff was kind of classic tragedy Godzilla stuff that was good, I thought. That's the character stuff that stands out.
Yeah. It has this neat gothic theme. The score is really unique for Godzilla. And then on the flip side, I just had a great time laughing about Raymond Burr and Dr. Pepper when we talked about the American version. So just a lot of interest there. 16. So this one, I said before, you guys brought 98 up quite a lot in my estimation. This movie was in my top 5 before we started this podcast.
What?
So you guys knocked it down.
Holy
11,
shit.
Let's go.
11 spots. And this movie is Destroy All Monsters.
Oh my god. Ryan. My number 16 is Destroy All Monsters.
Hey, Joanna.
It's 21 for me.
Oh. Yeah, this is one where nostalgia has loosened its grip quite a bit. My eyes are fully open to how once the novelty fades off, there are long stretches of this thing that are super repetitive and you lose focus. And possibly the flattest characters of the entire series, which is really saying something.
Yes.
But, and big but here, as a fan, it is a satisfying cap-off to the run of classic 60s movies. Like, everything leading up to now is almost like a loosely tied complete story, and this is like a sweet, enjoyable way to finish that little story. The score is great, the color is great, the concept is great, and it has that wonderful battle involving all the monsters, and they're all distinct personalities. They all get a moment. So still good in my heart, but I definitely see the flaws now.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think you go first, Sam.
Oh no, I'm just gonna say it's all the monsters on a monster island, tons of monster fights. You know, it's like it kind of has everything. It's like a big buffet of 60s Godzilla stuff, but it's also very on rails. It's like it just goes, and no actions by the characters seem to make that much of an effect of where it's going. It's just kind of like, we've put you on the ride, and you're going to see all the monsters fight, and that's cool. But I was kind of surprised because I remembered Ryan talking this one up so much. / this is the only one I had seen a part of before the podcast because I had seen it part of it at his house, and I was like, "This is Godzilla. Like, it's cool, but I'm not like really invested." And I think it's a little, when you watch the whole thing, I think it can get a little fatiguing.
Yeah, and I think for me, when looking at the whole of the '60s films, which I am a fan of, it is the weakest link of them for me because I think that their alien plot points are not as strong as some of the other ones, and their silliness is not as strong, and
But you love their outfits.
they had good outfits, but something about the execution, just wasn't as strong for me. I did also like that kind of snaky looking one as it was wrapping around like a bridge. I remember thinking that looked pretty cool. that guy looked cool. But this is another one too of wait, sorry, I'm trying to find which. Did I say which number again that I had it at?
You did. You said it was 21.
Okay. Yeah, that feels like pretty accurate.
You're not too far off from where I am. 15. We have Godzilla, King of the Monsters, 2019, just to specify. And let me say this because this is gonna be divisive. I've actually seen this quite a few times in the last 5 years, so this is a well-tested placement. I feel very sure about this. My wife likes this one too, actually. She'll just turn it on her own and watch it. It's a good movie in the vein of the Showa series, kind of hamstrung by some uneven writing and wasted potential. But you got one of my favorite scores, some of my favorite monster scenes. There's something to be said for following the sort of Ghidorah or Monster Zero level of tone, where it's pulpy and silly, but it still has that little thread of mythology and grandeur.
Oh boy, Joanna's gonna come in hot on this one. I have it at 23. I have it actually as I had originally called it Godzilla Heaven, and I still do. Though I think I made the distinction that it probably would be a personal purgatory and a Godzilla Heaven, and that's how I feel. I have it as my last clear-cut heaven. I think it has great monster moments, and I like the sort of spirit of it in principle, but I also think there's something about it. I can't quite put my finger on it. There's something about it that feels really weighed down. It gets really bogged down, and it's like so many characters. We never get to quite see the monster action be what it is. It's like I always feel like we have to cut to like them running into the ship. It's like I don't know. There's something I can't put my finger on that just doesn't stand out as a favorite. I've seen it twice, and I actually the second time I liked it a little less. So I like it, and again I understand. I think it got dunked on a little too hard because I think it is insane to kind of say, oh, it's so much worse than the other ones. I don't think that's true. I think that stuff is kind of weird. It's the timing of it. Sometimes people were ready for a Godzilla versus Kong, but they're not. They're similar in a lot of ways. But yeah, I like it, but I don't love it.
It's 34 for me immediately after the anime trilogy.
Man.
I thought it was so boring, and I thought the characters were boring. There were too many characters. They were boring. I thought Millie Bobby Brown was boring. I thought Kyle Chandler was boring. This was the one that I was hungover and threw up in the bathroom of Cobble Hill Cinema for anyone who lives in Brooklyn, because the loudness was just too much at the time. But I did go back feeling better and watch the rest of the movie and continue to think, nope, I feel better now and I'm still bored. So I'm not just going to put it on that, and I'm going to take to the internet 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. That is about where it sits for me as well. So there it stands. And I think
I'm not going to be satisfied until you watch it fully sober, Joe.
okay, I'll watch it again, but I also think, comparatively, I fucking love the recent Kong movies, so
Yeah.
I just don't really know what they were doing with this one.
It's so similar. It's like the same sort of tone.
No, there is a difference.
No, it's not. It's less fun. It's so self-serious. They have so many.
It's not self-serious. It's silly.
There's a little bit of a spirit to the two Godzilla, the two Wingard Godzillas, that's a little more just kind of carefree and committed to silliness. King of the Monsters has a lot of homage to the silly movies, and it has like comic relief characters, but there's still kind of a melodramatic
Self-serious
heft to it. Those later
Isn't
ones
this
don't
the one
have.
where like her mom dies or her mom is not a good mom or something like that? And I think that like both of these films, Millie and Aaron is the name of the other actor, right? I think that like the lead characters are just a little flat, and I think that again for a $150 million plus blockbuster film, you can't really have flat lead characters.
Millie Bobby Brown's character was never quite figured out, and so you get a lot of her in this one, and then you have a little less of her in Godzilla vs. Kong, and that's some of the draggiest stuff for me in that movie. And then I think that the newest one, they kind of went, oh yeah, maybe we just don't. Slash maybe she was like, I am so successful that I want no part of this, or who knows. I don't want to be, I don't think that they were like, we don't want you, Millie, one of the most popular actresses in the world.
Yeah, but her, and I also think Kyle Chandler, I love the guy, like Friday Night Lights, don't get me started, but I do feel like I've heard instances of people who have been on set with him for some more recent project that sometimes he's like a little phoning it in, maybe. So maybe there was a little of this happening.
I'll admit that the Millie Bobby Brown stuff isn't that interesting, but I think the human element is competent. It's baseline competent. Like it's a worn out conflict. Our child died in a Godzilla attack, but it exists. It is, the bones of it make sense.
Ryan, how about? Oh, sorry, finish. No, keep going. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and I really do think it is playful and winky. Like, it just expects you to be invested in the monsters. And apparently that's too tall of an ask for some people.
I will rewatch at some point the 2019 one, which I have ranked at 34, and Godzilla Returns, which I have ranked at 33. And I will let you know if those rankings stand for me or if they've changed. I'm not rewatching 2014. Don't ask me to.
That's fine. I am fine with that being your dead last. 14, speaking of the sweet spot, is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, which is actually the third Mechagodzilla movie from 1993. I was hoping to squeeze in another watch so I could be a little more fresh on it and better explain why I like it so much, but I going off of my memories, I still like it. I was pleasantly surprised when we watched it for the pod because it was real low for me off my one watch as a kid. And it does have a slow start and is by no means perfect, but it's skillfully made. It's probably the best the movie has been at painting a morally gray Godzilla, where he has emotions and is essentially an innocent animal, but is also incredibly destructive and vindictive against humanity. The stuff with the baby Godzilla is sweet and a little bit haunting, and I like how the plot pulls us from one allegiance to another. Like, sometimes we're a little bit more with Godzilla, sometimes we're a little bit more with the humans. We can understand where they're both coming from, and there's, it gives the action a little bit more weight. And there's lots of big gasp moments too, which is not that usual for Godzilla, where we have like sudden turns where like Godzilla's on the brink of death and then he just absolutely melts down and annihilates Mechagodzilla, and you think all the people inside are dead, and I kind of wish they were, because it would have hit harder if they were. But that's my loving on that one.
I'll go first because I'm pretty close here. I have it at 19, and it's for all the reasons you said. It's my favorite of the 90s Godzillas. So it's top of the 90s. Got it at 19. I only have it a little ahead of. I have it one spot ahead of 85, and then that's a spot ahead of King Ghidorah, and that's a spot ahead of Godzilla and Mothra Battle for Earth. So
right,
but
all very close.
Close, but I think I like it a little more than those ones. So that's where I've got.
I have it at 25, and I think again when looking at the overall series for me, the films that stuck out the most and were the most enjoyable or that I was the most excited, the elements that you're mentioning, Ryan, I agree, were like all there. They were just a little less. I was a little less taken by them, maybe. So just a little lower on my overall ranking, but not a 2019 level at all. So.
Yeah, thank God. 13, we have for me Godzilla versus Biollante. This is my highest Heisei series placement, which is probably not surprising to you guys, but might make some listeners sad. I'm sorry to you if you're a defender. But look, it was just a very commercially oriented and lazy series. You know it's true. To be honest with yourself. This is one of the few of them where it takes some swings, and while they definitely don't all pay off, a lot of them do. Got an interesting story. Biollante is a wonderful rival monster. There's some great showstopper special effects scenes. It looks good overall. It could stand to be punchier and more involving. Like there's potential there to really, jerk some tears with the Biollante origin and the heavy themes at play. But I like it a lot.
Joanna?
I had it at 22, and I think when we originally watched it, I remember I think I really didn't like it, maybe.
Yeah, you were pretty low. I'm glad it's only at 22.
I raised it a little higher in thinking about how much you guys liked the film or liked it more than me, and I thought, I'll give it a little more credence. I think in looking at the series as a whole, just again, yes, the uniqueness, the plant-natured uniqueness of the story. A shout out to Agent SSS9 too. Anytime we have an agent, that's a fun little character add. I like the explosion at the end that have the spores kind of shaped like Erica. But I think, Ryan, you're right. There's another kind of father-daughter narrative in the series that's much stronger. So I think they could have done a little more with it. But yeah, I wasn't like a major fan of it, but I didn't want to be a total hater. So I kind of flopped it right in the middle.
Oh, that's sweet of you.
I'm close to Ryan. I have it at 11. And
just missed your top 10.
Just missed the top 10, and I think if the story was a little didn't drag so much, and the origin made a little more sense, because it kind of feels like it sort of dances around being really emotionally involving, but kind of doesn't totally. If that stuff was stronger, I think we'd be talking about a really good one. But I have it at 11, and kind of similar to how I felt about 2014 Godzilla, I'm kind of like the best moments in it are good enough that I want to put it higher because it has memorable parts. And it's like there's some really cool practical effect puppetry stuff that you don't see quite in the same way in some of the others. I have it a spot over Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Two different movies, despite being synonyms.
I think when we recorded, I probably watched the incorrect one first, and then I had to figure it out.
But yeah, the Against Mechagodzilla is probably a more solid movie overall. But Biollante has parts that stand out in my memory. Its best parts are really good.
Absolutely. Here's another one that's sure to ruffle some feathers. Probably not my placement, but where you guys are gonna put it.
There you go.
Number 12, Shin Godzilla.
Wow, only at 12, Ryan? That's like
Well,
the
fun fact-
second best one in the whole series. Everyone says.
Fun fact, this movie and my next one were originally part of my top 10 before this year. So this has been such a good year for Godzilla that it totally shook up my top tier.
Wow.
But yeah, 12 it is right now. Where do you guys have it?
Sam, you go first.
You should go first, Joanna.
No, you go first.
They're afraid.
Okay, so I said earlier, this is not me being a contrarian. I genuinely think this. I have it at 32. It is way at the bottom of my list. And all I'll say is I think the approach to visual effects is really cool. I really like the way they did visual effects in it. I really like some of the ideas behind it. But I find, to me personally, the storytelling of it to be like wildly irritating. Like I really didn't enjoy watching it. In so many ways. And all I can say is like, people have different ideas of how movies should tell a story, and I bounced off of it so hard. I don't care for it. I really don't care for it. I like things about it, and I respect some things, but yeah, it's way down at the bottom for me.
I have it at number 9.
Oh.
I don't have too many specifics to give other than I just think when I was like looking at this list as a whole and thinking kind of about my top 10, like not being like it needs to be varied up a bit, but just thinking like of pulling some different facets from different elements of the series.
That's the thing, is I can't disagree that much with Sam, despite how different our placements are. I think he's being unusually harsh, but sometimes movies just don't click with people. So here's the thing.
I'm not exaggerating. Genuinely,
this movie is super culturally dense and off-putting in the way that it's made. I said this when we did the episode. The first time I watched it, I was like, when is this going to stop? When is the movie going to start? And then eventually I was like, oh no, this is just how it's all going to be. But I think if you can get past those entry fees, you've got a really clever, sharp, satirical Godzilla movie. It's very funny and a bit scary in turns, and it manages these disparate themes well, I believe. The redesign of Godzilla, controversial, but I really like it. I think reimagining Godzilla as a machine-like destructive force is a really interesting take. So as this like one-off experiment, like doing something really strange and being smart about it, that's why it's so high for me.
Yeah, I think I'm also like honestly a little swayed too, just by the fact that I know my like brother had an experience with it, while he was like living in Japan and it premiering there, and kind of hearing about that as it was happening too. So that definitely adds a little bit to the narrative beyond the film and is, kind of an individual experience.
Yeah, I feel that.
I want to like defend my position because I think I have concrete, at least I have arguments. About some of that
yes.
stuff. But we're on a Godzilla podcast, and like people really do like it, and I want to. It's not like I'm going to convince you, but like I don't. It's fine. I've said my piece. I said it on the podcast, but I'm I'm not exaggerating.
Hate away, like I'll hate 2019 and 2014 all day long.
I don't hate. Per se, because I like kind of what it's going for, but yeah, it's all I'll say is that Shin Inframan elicited a similar response where I just don't care for.
You mean Ultraman?
Or what? Oh, Shin Inframan would be rad. Oh no, the Shin part is what bothers me. Is the Shins keep coming in and doing something. The filmmaking really just bothers me. It just does, and it's not unpleasant to me in the way that like a really movies that kind of prod you, like when Scorsese does a movie that it intentionally makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like I'm just like being assaulted by filmmaking that I don't care for. Do you know what I mean? But again, not everyone feels that way. So that's fine, you know?
So there's just these visual languages and story patterns that don't work. And because they're so unique, they work so well for some people, and they just burrow into people's brains like a nail sometimes. That for me, that's Martin McDonagh. And for you, it's Hideaki Anno. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on from this fiery conversation. At 11, I have Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, 1974, just to specify.
Ooh.
How about you guys?
I have it at number 5.
Totally legit.
This is a fun one.
Wow, I feel terrible. I put it at 23, but I also did enjoy it. So, again, the list is not perfect.
This is a series where they're all fun in their own ways. It could have gone anywhere.
Yeah.
Joanna's list is very fluid. It's like
my list is super fluid. The middle 20 are kind of like,
I imagine your list looks like a turtle. It's got a very defined head and flippers, and then
exactly. And I got color coded by the 10s, but the middle 2 10s again, you could be a little flexible.
Yeah. And finally, this was another one that the position changed hugely after we watched it for the podcast. I think it was somewhere down around 20. But I found myself really delighted to see it again. The plot's always moving forward. The movie's just so colorful and musically interesting. It's wonderfully goofy with the space apes and King Caesar and all that.
King Caesar's the best.
Yeah, his big floppy puppy ears.
It's just weird that they're like, of all the monsters, let's add a puppet to this one, It's like, why?
He's supposed to be a Shisa dog. He just happens to look much rattier than a Shisa dog. This is the swan song to the Showa B team. Jun Fukuda is director. Masaru Sato is composer. A few other people, and I feel like they just really put their back into it. Yeah, Sam, you wanna jump in and add some more love?
Well, yeah, I didn't expect it to be number 5 for me. I had fond memories of it, and I kind of thought of it as being like just like it's not reinventing the wheel. It's nothing like brilliant. But it's just fun. It's just a light, fun Godzilla movie that's colorful. And kind of looking at my top 10, I'd say outside of the top 3, we're kind of in what are the kind of just fun, delightful ones. And so and I was like, well, it's kind of among the more fun and delightful ones. So it kind of slotted in there. It could go probably anywhere between 3 and 10 for me, but that's where I settled. I think it's a good time.
Absolutely. My only genuine criticism is that it's just a little insubstantial, which is the same also with my number 10. 10 and 11 are as close as anything on this list. So my top, I really have a top 9 more than a top 10, or a top 11, depending on how you want to look at it. But yeah, that caps off that section. And now we get to my top 10 easy recommends.
Wow.
I feel like you don't need much setup to convince someone on this. At least people who like movies. So number 10, I have Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire.
The newest one.
Woo!
Yep.
We're not the same, but I have it at number 8, and I'm just happy to have the support on it.
Oh, absolutely.
I have it at number 18.
Sam, where was it for you?
18. But like, it's in a big group of movies.
Yeah.
I don't think I disagree too much with you guys.
Yeah. Joanna, why don't you start? I feel like it's been a while since you've started.
Yeah, this one I just saw on a Friday afternoon, and I saw it at a packed movie theater, and it was a bunch of families there with like 10-year-old boys, and everyone just had the time of their lives. And I think, as I've said before, I'm always a fan of Hollow Earth. I think there were some interesting, interesting monkey friends that they added. Silly.
All the Kongs.
All the Kongs, silly. I think that, as you'll see in my top 10 that I think like 3 or 4 of them are Kong. Not surprisingly. But the parts in it where you're getting the sadness of him missing his family, like, it always hits. It doesn't matter how many times they hit on that. It's like the same thing as when I watch Ice Age. I'm always like, oh God, their families are gone. So that will always work for me. I think that I actually had Godzilla vs. Kong above this on my list, but I'm wondering if maybe I might swap those. Because I almost think that this one had a little more like fun. Was this the one? Was this the one, Ryan, that you were saying like? He wanted it to be. What were we talking about? Kind of like.
Yeah, he wanted to be a modern champion festival.
Yes, and that's like exactly what it felt like. If that's what it was going for, I felt like it landed at 100%. Especially being with like all these 10-year-olds in the movie theater. Even the like silly aspect of like him having to come up and like get his tooth taken out, and like it just was so silly. So I might even actually like swap these and put it at number 6 and Godzilla vs. Kong at number 8.
I totally support that because I was craving the day that the American Godzilla movies went full stupid maximalism.
Yeah.
And it finally arrived here. It really just captures the goofy joy of the good guy versus bad guy Godzilla movies so well. It's like a subgenre onto itself, and this is maybe where it peaks just from a pure execution of that subgenre. The monsters have a lot of personality. The set pieces are fun. It's not especially inventive, but it does seem to say, well, wouldn't it be fun if we did X a lot? Wouldn't it be fun if we brought Mothra back? Wouldn't it be fun if there was a vet that pulled King Kong's tooth?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be fun if there was a shitty little baby Kong running around throwing his poop? Not literally, but figuratively. I might be riding high on recency bias, but I don't think it's going to fall more than a couple places, if so.
But I think, too, that you can, like, feel the fun, too. You can feel in this film that, like, the actors are having fun with it. Like, I feel like with, what's his name, playing the vet, Dan Stevens, like, he's normally playing, I feel like he's most known for his role on Downton Abbey. But to, like, just see him here, just be like, you know what, I'm just going to freaking go for it. It was really enjoyable to see them. Okay, we don't have to be so self-serious in this like big budget film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have it at 18. I have it one spot below Godzilla versus Kong. There are pros and cons to both for me. I mean, it's Godzilla versus Kong has some the scale of it is larger, and there are scenes I think I like more. But you're right that the sort of like simple, gleeful goofiness of this one I think is fun. My biggest knock would just be, and this isn't really a knock because it does exactly what it set out to do. It's like a movie equivalent of a pixie stick, where like it's just like it's all sugar. I saw it and had a great time. Mac and I had a great time in the theater. We just said, oh, that was what fun. And then I kind of I haven't thought about it much since, but like that's what it tried to do. So it's not really a criticism. I think maybe the start was a little tough for me. There were a lot of non-scenes with a ton of ADR kind of getting us off the ground, and then it kind of caught its stride a little bit. But it's not a huge criticism. But it didn't. I think there are just 10 that I. Or more than 10, but several that the top group I just like more and would be more likely to rewatch, but still fun. And the silly Scar King villain is like quite good, and it's good. It's fun.
Yeah,
I like
the Scar King.
Yeah, I think you're too low, but you're right that it is a pixie stick of a movie. Like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, there's no substance here. And these next 9 for me at least have something special about them. Um, and we're gonna kick those 9 off with Godzilla versus the Smog Monster.
I have it at number 17. I think that
Okay.
I really liked the monster, like the design of the smog monster, and I thought, okay, they're going for, a byproduct of pollution, and this is what this is doing. And I did enjoy too, in a recap that I was reading, it was talking about Godzilla returning to the sea, but not before pausing to gaze sternly at the humans. So again, I know they were going for this pollution narrative and having Godzilla play a part in that, but I think in terms of thinking about some of those more earlier films, it just stuck out as a tiny bit less memorable for me, so that's why it's more like kind of middle of my list.
That is the bizarrest criticism to level against it. Is not memorable, but we'll move on. Go ahead, Sam.
This is my number 3, you guys.
Oh my god, I knew.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my thought. It's shoddy at times. The final fight, I think, goes on too long. It's not the best movie at all times, but I will contend it is the most committed, earnest, honest of the bunch. I just think you can feel in a way that is rivaled only by the original. You can feel the director go, I have something I gotta get off my chest, and he sure does. And it's just so committed. I'm so tickled by it, and there's a lot of little invention in it. There's just it's there's just such a sort of shotgun approach to keeping it lively with animation and rock and roll, and just it's so it goes black and white and then it goes into color for a song, and you're just I can feel it feels like one of the more auteurial, probably the most auteurial movie of the series, and I give it so much credit for that. I think it's I like it. I like it a lot. It's not perfect, but I sort of like the flaws of it as much as any of the good stuff in any of the other movies. Number 3.
I love it a lot too. It is. I find it a very uneven Godzilla movie. The tone, the pacing, the characters are all over the place. They're up and they're down. It's hard to get a handle on, which is perhaps why I'm not quite as high as you. But in terms of the sheer ambition, you're totally right. It's there all the way. And I'm sad that Bano got yelled at by Tomoyuki Tanaka and blackballed out of Toho, but he got his revenge in the end. His name is still on every single legendary Godzilla movie that comes out, even long after his death. So, bless you, Yoshimitsu Bano. But yeah, you really do get hit with the impact of rampant pollution, and there's a sadly very recognizable cynicism there, a recognition that no one, perhaps bar scientists, have the answers, and there isn't the willpower, the competence to make the solutions to this problem. But even aside from that, it's just a very solid monster movie. Hedorah, such a great monster concept, so full of character. When I think of why the Godzilla monsters are different from other giant monsters, one of the first scenes I think of is when Hedorah crawls out of the ocean and starts sucking on those smokestacks, and you see him gradually close his eyes in pleasure, and there's the sound effects of just breathing in these horrible suffocating fumes and loving it, and I'm that's what it's about. So very, very memorable.
I think I'm going to add this to my list. I'm now at 3 to rewatch, because I also do think we probably watched this 5 years ago, right? So not memorable to me, maybe because of the lack of aliens and the lack of costumes could be, but probably worth a a rewatch to like see where it sits if I actually fully more remember what's going on, because I do remember some of the psychedelic.
I think so.
Yeah, so I'll add that to the list.
Yeah,
it's not crazy to think that it could be more, it could be paced better,
Middle.
and it could be, yeah, for sure. I just, I kind of said it, for me, my top three, I think, are, and this being the third one of those, are like, I just really feel like honest, earnest movies, and then we start getting into like, this is a rip-roaring good time. And I kind of give it credit for like, I really feel the commitment on this one.
I feel too our number threes for what we gravitate towards. Like mine is All Monsters Attack at my number three. Like it feels like that feels accurate too. That I'm like, picked one that I'm like, oh, this kid's movie.
We might have the same one and two. We might have two Screonks coming up here.
I hope
We
that
might.
you guys. I hope that we do, and I hope that we don't fuck it up and swap them. I hope that we don't have the same for our top two and fucking swap them, because I was deciding at the last minute how I would do it.
we're gonna find out. Our top tens are not terribly dissimilar,
Well,
especially yours and mine, Sam.
You and Sam have been kind of the whole way pretty consistent. I've got some wild cards left.
Yeah, there are a couple I'm scared of though. One of which is coming up right now. At number 8, I have Mothra versus Godzilla, aka Godzilla versus the Thing. So let me start out with my big defense, and then I'll let you guys break my heart.
Yeah.
Maybe. So I know that the ending of this movie goes on too long. We talked about that in detail. We covered it well. I know that there's some logical leaps in this story. Sam always talks about, why don't he eat the egg? And I know we can't ignore it because this is not full silly Godzilla. It's only partly silly Godzilla. And that's why this is not in my top 5. But I will stand on top of a mountain and scream and fight and spend every last drop of blood I have to say it deserves to be in the top 10. There's a naive but really heartwarming theme here about the deep brotherhood of all mankind and the ties that bind us, whether it's convenient for us to remember it or not, and how we should all be more generous to one another and make the sacrifices we need to take care of each other. And that's very touching, and that's exemplified through Mothra. Just a genuinely touching character to me in this, a heroic martyr that I've loved since I was a kid. This is the origin of Joanna saying that's so precious, so feel free to throw it in there if you want, Joanna. But the characters, charming and memorable. The effect scenes are mostly fun and pretty on par for what was possible at the time, even in movies with a much larger budget. Script is solid. This is like Shinichi Sekizawa at the peak of his powers. It's great. Now, get ready to fight me on top of the mountain.
Sam, you go first.
What number was this for you, Ryan?
8.
It was 8. So this is my number 33. I'm totally kidding. It's my number 9.
Okay, all right.
It's my number 9.
All right.
It's in the top 10.
Yeah.
And
All right.
and I think I may have been being kind of a bit of a dick when we first covered it. But also it was presented to me as being like, is this the best Godzilla movie outside the original? And it's like, well, no, it kind of loses its way a little at the end. It's not perfect, or to me maybe not great, but it's squarely in my 3 through 10 group of really good, fun movies with some ideas. It's like it's good and fun. It's number 9. It's like I do like it. I'm still a little mad about the whole egg thing. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't dropped that. That stuff frustrates me, but that's my thing. That's my cross to bear. But I do like it, and it is good, and I think it's one of the best. Number 9.
Lovely.
I ranked it lower, but I also do think
lower.
I do think this also falls into, like, there are probably 4 or 5 films on the list that just the closeness and fondness that you hold to the narrative and the memory of it, I just feel a little more distant from it, and that was like that was a part of my ranking system, was like, what do I remember from these 7 years of films that we watched that really stuck with me the most. I think compared to the original Mothra, it did not, but I had it at 27. But I would say that, Ryan, I think I knew going into this that my list was going to be the most different from yours, probably. And I do hold strong to what I have included in my top 10. But God fucking A, I'm going to have to rewatch like 9 of these movies just to
That's
confirm
right.
where they land.
That's right.
Because I didn't have it in my soul when we were doing this ranking. I was like, I can't possibly rewatch these 38 films. Like, I have 10 weddings this summer. It's never going to happen. But
I'll be a little empathetic here.
It's more so hearing Sam rank it so high that I'm like, wait a second, am I missing something? So maybe I'll have to. I can't. I gotta max out at 5 for rewatching for considerations. But
all right. And you both were on Purgatory initially. So.
This is a heaven for me.
I'm gonna give this vote in the part 2 of this that we do of the finale. I'll do a brief little recap of these ones Ryan loved that I ranked towards the bottom.
Yeah, this was
right,
6 years ago,
generous.
and I had something. I felt like I had something to prove, but no, I mean it's good. Also, it was like, I mean, it's number 9, but it was like what, the 5th one we watched. So clearly,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I was a little disappointed, but then you look at the scope of the movies, and it's like, you know, it's a tentpole.
So
it's one of the best.
This was 6 years ago. Okay,
Yeah, this would have been near the beginning.
That then helps at least me feel like, okay, that's maybe why the details are not sticking.
Yeah, this was after our first hiatus, but still very early on.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll keep y'all posted for part 2.
All right. 7, we have a popular one on this podcast. We're all erstwhile defenders of it. Ibira, Horror of the Deep, aka Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. This is one I was hoping to squeeze in a rewatch of too, because again, I've only ever seen it twice, and it's been 6 years since I watched it last, so I don't recall it as well as I would like. But I know we were very high on it. It was always going to make the top 10. So this is just kind of where it ended up based on what I could remember and my feelings on the other one. And I think I'd like to save the rest of my thoughts until you guys go.
Wait, can you just remind me, like, what are the... I mainly am remembering the monster from this one, but less so what the characters were up to.
This is what you frequently described as running around on an island, surf rock
yes,
music.
Okay, it was the surf rock. Okay, amazing. So then I gotta up where I had this on my list.
All right. Sam?
This is my number 10. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I love the vibes of it. It's like a pretty it's an enjoyable little romp through an island with this, as Joanna likes to say, the Scooby-Doo gang. And I think it's just I have it at 10 as opposed to higher, just because I think the others have more stuff I like. Like this one, it's more the vibes in a couple parts. I mean, those guys getting speared by Ibira, sick. But a little
Villager on a stick.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think some of the others are better, but I like it, and I'm always surprised to see that this is a not popular one amongst several fans. Most lists I've seen have this one kind of low, and I like it. So again, a little lower than you, but top 10 barely.
Yeah, I think we're basically on the same page there. And this is the one that baffles me the most, because I can see the surface level reasons for dumping on the Minya movies, but this one, like, I don't quite get why people like to poo-poo it.
Right,
Joanna,
what is it at for
what are
you?
your thoughts? 7.
Okay, yeah, I just upped it to 8.
Okay. Where was it before?
28. Because also in going through the list, I was like, where are those fun surf dudes running around on the island? I couldn't remember where they were. And for this one, I could primarily remember the big old lobster dude. And I do also want to give kudos because I freaking love that scene where they're kind of just playing pickleball with this rock. It's like a little too long of a scene. They're just like slowly passing this rock back and forth. But yeah, this one I have a ton of fun with now that I'm remembering the wholeness of the picture. So it's getting bumped up to number 8. And this is what this discussion is for, for me to bring my best effort and to also get help from my friends.
Yes. The boulder tennis is a classic.
Yeah, it really is.
But this is one where I don't so much mind that the monsters take a relative backseat. Although they are integrated pretty well into the plot. Godzilla, Mothra, Bira, they all have something to do with why the story is going on and how it gets resolved. And they all have elements of personality. But it is really about the humans, and I think it does it well. They make some clever and interesting decisions. Very colorful, very 60s movie. The most James Bondiest of the Godzilla movies, perhaps, as we've said. Number 6, I have Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster.
Ooh. That's my number 4.
Where do you have it? Okay. Wow, interesting. I would never have expected you have it higher than me, but I'm glad. Joanna?
I have it at 17.
Okay. Sam, you want to start this one?
This is, at number 4, it's the top of my just kind of fun, breezy 60s, wacky Godzilla movies, and I think that the ruffled collars do a lot for me, but I think it's I think it's I have it ahead of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and I think it has a little more of a point, I guess, than that, but they're kind of similar. It's just like a good, colorful, fun time. I think Ishiro Honda's still bringing a little energy. I think he that dwindles a little after this one. But I find the alien princess angle of all of it to be like it's kind of the first one, as I remember, to do that, and I find it to be kind of innovative in that way. So it's kind of just one of the fun ones, and probably the best of those for me.
Yes. Once again, we're pretty locked in. To me, this is the platonic ideal of whimsical Godzilla movies. You have a story that is equally concerned with monster and human characters. There's lots of clever, funny stuff, but also a mythos and gravitas to the proceedings. Like the King Ghidorah appearance is handled with a lot of dread and genuine fear. He's not a joke. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that's a joke, but he's not a joke. Nor is Malmus, except for that one scene where he's wearing a ruffled collar.
Malmus is the best, by the way.
Yeah. Genuinely menacing, especially the scene where he gets into the princess's hotel room and is about to cut her throat or something until the fairies save her. And that's the duality of this movie right there. You get a big fun battle at the end. You get lovable characters. I think this has one of my favorite subtle jokes, or I don't know if you would call it subtle. I would. Subtle jokes of the entire series, which is the scene where the fairies are appearing on a television variety show, but not headlining it, and
so
a character turns it off and says, "This is boring." Which is just hysterical that this series has reached the point where someone is bored by 2 tiny telepathic fairies who have saved the world multiple times and their giant god moth. It's just hilarious and I love it. I think my top 5 are a little more special, but if a Godzilla movie can't make it to that level of special, it would do well to follow in the footsteps of Ghidorah here. That's my take.
You guys, I'm bumping this one up too, because this is all just, I think there were a few of them, again, my swath of 20 that all were kind of sitting, and then the specifics, I just wasn't remembering how fondly I loved them, and hearing you guys, talk about them really is bringing it up. So now this is number 8. and Godzilla versus the Sea Monster is number 9. So that has been adjusted.
Okay, it's a very, very live, active list.
It's an active list because I'm just remembering more fully the silly and need to pay credence to that accordingly.
Yeah. And don't worry, everyone, we'll have all 3 of our lists in text in the show notes and on the website.
Yeah, and hey, maybe with my updated list, we'll have a few more that align.
Maybe. Because we were just a little bit off on some.
Just a few off on some.
Yeah. Alright. At 5, I have Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters, All Out Attack, aka GMK.
Ooh. This is my number 6.
Just a hair off.
This
So
is
close.
my number 7.
5, 6, 7.
It was really the 98 that got in the way of me matching either of you.
It's true. It's true. This is all Broderick's fault.
Yep, 100%.
Just like that dead person in Ireland.
Yikes.
I'm keeping that in.
No.
I'll never miss an opportunity to nail him to the wall for that. Anyway, Joanna, would you like to start? Because I think you do remember this one a little bit.
Yeah, I think with this one, speaking to earlier, just this narrative of, I think I just remember at the end, like, really being invested in the characters of this one. I loved Yuri, our documentary filmmaker, who was just on the ground following the case always and catching all of this, basically being everywhere. And I thought she was a really strong female character, which we're starting to see more of as we're getting to the end of the list. But I also thought that it was very, very dark and interesting. Their narrative of that it was the souls of soldiers and civilians who were killed during the Pacific War that were embedded within Godzilla and lashing out. I think that's among the darkest that the series goes. There are a few other films that hit that level of seriousness, but I just thought that was, again, a more specific narrative, and they were really leaning into something with that and making more of a statement. So I think that if it's not going to be the silly, goofy 60s films, I don't want it to be in this level of drama but blandness. I appreciated that there was a stronger narrative behind that. And I think at the end of this film, I do remember feeling like, oh, there was like an arc and my heart felt something, which I hadn't felt for a good amount of them. So makes top 7. For the ones that are leaning more serious a little bit more, yeah.
This is what lifted us out of the dregs of that bad run from the late 90s to the early 2000s.
It really did.
We got pulled right back into the drag.
Yeah.
2 or 3
but I remember it kind of like revitalized us. Yeah. We were like, a movie.
Oh no! Actually, no. The one right after this is Godzilla against Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, that one was pretty
That's
good.
Pretty
too.
good. And then we got pulled into the dregs.
And then we got pulled in.
Yeah, I everything that Joanna said, everything Ryan's gonna say, it's got good, clear ideas. I think the reason I have it 6 and behind those other 2, behind Mechagodzilla and three-headed monster, is it's and behind, I'll say, my top 2. The ideas are cool. I don't always like the execution. It falls a little bit short of some of it for me. And it's not like, in a weird way, it's not like a personal favorite holding it out of the top 5. I don't love it, but I do respect it and like it and think it's solid, and boy does it stand out in its era too. You know, where like the fact that it's in the middle of the 60s ones for me, which are all a good time, you know, they're the best ones, you know. I think that speaks to it very highly.
Absolutely. For the first time I saw this, I was hooked. With Shishuke Kaneko as the director, who did the great 90s Gamera movies. There's just a great sense of pacing and visual interest and humanity in the story. In a lot of Godzilla movies, the characters don't feel like people, which is, I'm sure there's factors that make us feel that way, but in this movie, they feel very human, both the foibles and the virtues of humanity. And the themes aren't super well developed. You're right, Sam. It doesn't totally come together, but they are present, and they give you something to chew on. Like with Godzilla's origin, how haunting and serious that is, and the family relationship between Yuri and her dad. I love the genuinely funny and clever touches. Like, this is a funny ass movie.
Yeah.
And all intentional, basically. And great action scenes, just doing a lot with a little. And it combines the openly fantastical elements with more science fiction type ones in a really cool and creative way. So I call Ghidorah the platonic ideal of Godzilla movies. This is the friends with benefits ideal of Godzilla movies.
Boy, it's late.
It sure is. Number 4 for me is Godzilla -1.
We do not have the same top 2.
Same.
No.
Sam, what do you have it as?
I have it as number 2.
Same. God damn it, Ryan.
Yeah.
I knew this would happen. I knew Sam and I would maybe be the same.
I knew it, and this makes me even more scared about the next 2. How low you guys have them. But I really didn't expect another Godzilla movie to ever crack my top 5. I kind of thought it was always basically set in stone. So that says a lot about how special -1 is. It's probably the most humanistic, character-driven Godzilla, and it does it so well. Never feels clumsy or stupid or dull. I get really involved with both the boat crew and the found family of Shikishima. But also Godzilla is still a vital story element. It's still about Godzilla is important to it, and he feels genuinely dangerous and frightening. And there's stuff I can nitpick, but basically the main reason that the next 3 movies beat it out are because of their impact, whether that be to me personally or in a global sense. So I'm sorry, totally legit to have this anywhere in your top 5. For me, though, it's 4.
I think for me, without saying anything about number 1, if you have someone who's new, who's like, I'm interested in Godzilla, I want to watch like a modern movie, what do you recommend? I think this film, not just within the Godzilla series, like I think in general as a film, does amazing work. And I think that if you were to say, oh, you've never seen the series, like start here, and to be able to kind of like dive on into it, you would really be able to hold the attention of a lot of people, and then from there could lead them to the 60s ones, these ones that are also now, that were in your top 10 and are now in my top 10 definitively too. After that, this movie I'm like excited to rewatch multiple times in the future, and I think just the timing of it coming out this year as we were wrapping things up felt really wonderful too, for like a me who was not, kind of born inherently as a Godzilla fan, to see this freshness and excitement around it from friends who have not ever engaged with the series was very cool to see.
Yeah, before Sam jumps in here and finishes this up, you're totally right. If you're trying to convert someone to Godzilla, this would have to be number 1. There's just no other way. Sam?
Yeah, it's, I've said to liken it to the James Bond equivalent, it's the Casino Royale with Daniel Craig of the Godzilla series, where it's arguably the first one of the series that goes, we're going to just make a really clear, concise, blank slate story that makes sense. Godzilla, everything, we take nothing for granted. If I said the 90s rested on their laurels, this takes nothing for granted. It goes, let's start from scratch. What's a story we can tell, with this character? And it does it very well. It's maybe not. It's funny. I put it at number 2 because I think it has too many things going for it. I don't know that it's my second, the one I'm second most likely to watch again per se, but I like it, and I like a lot of the craft, and I, not to return to my Shin Godzilla thoughts, but like this one is one where I see the filmmaking and I go, oh, just like there's such a like an honest, clear attempt at storytelling and also at cool technical stuff. I really admire the decision making of making a movie like this with the budget that they used. It's as a film guy, it's sort of intellectually stimulating to go, oh wow, what a crazy interesting way they chose to do that, on a budget. Like, it's so fun, it's not the most fun of the movies either, but it's just good and solid. Number 2 for me.
Yeah.
You guys, wait. We might have the same numbers 3, because that's what's next for you.
We don't, because I've already said my 3.
Oh fuck! Wait, no, I've already said
Yeah.
my 3. I meant. Damn it! I think the next one for us might be the same, but we're on different numbers of it.
I suspect this next one you both have at least 10 lower, and it's gonna make me sad.
Oh, wait, never mind. Okay, now I know what it is. Yeah,
Ryan,
this
do
is-
it. Rip off the Band-Aid.
This
actually, mine is
the
exactly
reason.
mine is 10 exactly 10 lower.
This is the reason I wanted you guys to rewatch a movie for this, because I really think this deserves a second chance, and it's Son of Godzilla.
See, I don't have it that low. I have it at 13, but
Yeah.
you're not going to break it into the top 10 for me, because I don't like. There's just so much more fun happening with some other ones,
I've seen
or
this one
narratives
twice.
that are pulling at my heart. You
This
what?
actually, I have seen this one twice. Because
You have?
yes, because this long story, but I was looking, I was putting into practice my put a movie on in the background of a party thing,
Yes.
and ended up just watching it. So I've seen it
It's a
twice.
point in its favor.
So I actually feel pretty good about my placement at number 15.
Okay, so Sam and I are but we're not.
Yeah.
We're not terribly low, Ryan.
No, it's in heaven, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go on. No, you should say your
All right.
your thing.
I just think is so well done. It deserves top 10. And listen, there's obviously an element here of what this meant to me growing up, and I'm not blind to that. It's a point of unity for me and my sister. So many playtimes reference stuff, Son of Godzilla, and I'm happy about those things and open about them. I'm not apologetic, but I am understanding that not everyone has that in their back pocket to help this movie feel better. But there is a touching, creative, well-paced movie here. There's an escalation of threats in this movie that I think probably beats out any other Godzilla movie, where it starts with the general mystery of the island, then the giant mantises, and then Godzilla and Minya come in with a radioactive heat storm and really kickstart the danger and the adventure of the movie. And then at the third act pivot, you bring in Kumonga, the giant spider, to really drive in the danger that they can't stay there anymore. There's always something more exciting coming along to prod the story forward, and the point of view characters are fun and charming, but they also have some real conflict between them they have to sort out. They're not just naively happy-go-lucky. They're in a tense situation, and the tension does explode between them, but you like them and you want to see them succeed, and you feel good when they succeed and the weather experiment brings down the snow at the end. This is a real ass movie here, and then the ending is so poignant and sweet, like nothing in a science fiction movie before and rarely since, that it was able to end on that bittersweet, tender moment, and I admire that so much.
Aww. Yay. I think mine, I mean, again, I don't think 13 is that low for it. I think it's that mainly I can be in agreement with a lot of the things that you said. They just don't hold the nostalgia for me in the same way, and they don't hit in quite the same way. And for me, the more kids version will always be All Monsters Attack. Just like the spunkiness of Ichiro is always going to hold my heart in that realm of things. But I do understand and can very much appreciate that, like, if this is introduced to you early on and at a young age, that it is doing a lot within the movie that it's looking to make and achieves it.
Yeah. I just have an axe to grind because this is so low on so many people's lists, and it does not deserve it. It is.
Is it like last or?
I generally see people being a little more generous to it now, and it's usually not in the bottom 10, but it's usually right there above it, like 30 or I don't know, 28, somewhere around there.
Well, I'm at half that at 15, so
Yeah,
you
so
know.
we're like giving it gold
Yeah.
stars over here.
I know, but I need you guys to be on my side so we can raise
agree.
the
No, I
average.
can't make it top 10.
I agree with what you're saying. It's one of those things you can kind of lay out the escalation of it and like look at how well constructed it is, and I go, yeah, you could say that. It just doesn't. I don't feel it to the same level. It kind of, those are all kind of external things. It just doesn't. I don't jive with it in the same way. But I like it. You know, I think it's pretty good. I have it right at number 15, one spot below 2014 Godzilla, which I think is pretty good.
It doesn't pull my attention in the same way that all the films in my newly revised top 10 list as of 12 minutes ago do.
to be, and I will say, I mean, look, this is a subjective list, and it's also, it's not super precise because I have it, I have All Monsters Attack at 13, and like, I think Son of Godzilla is probably an overall better made movie than All Monsters Attack. But I go, I think so. But I don't think either one is as well made as some of the ones up top, and those jive with me more.
Right.
So, I think it's good. I'm not putting it at 30. It doesn't belong down there with Shin Godzilla. Please.
I've made my defense. People, come to my rescue in the comments. Number 2.
Okay, wait,
King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yes! A classic among classics.
Absolutely. Similarly, there's a lot of nostalgia at play here. This was my first Godzilla movie. Favorite for a long time, and it probably still is. This is just burned into my brain at this point. It's one of those movies where you could point me away from the TV and just play it, and just hearing the audio, I can make not just the lines, but the sound effects and the music that are about to happen in the next few seconds. So I'm about as biased as you could get on this movie. But again, plenty to genuinely praise and love here, at least when we're talking about the Japanese version. It's a very funny and effective satirical comedy that I think is ahead of its time. I can't think of anything earlier that talks about how a popular concept moves past sincerity into parody. Like, it's the first I can think of in that, at least in the modern context that I can understand. And that's really cool and smart. And takes some good shots at corporate culture. And of course, we have our favorite human character of the entire series, Dr. Taco, a hilarious delight. And I mean that. We have beautiful, goofy plots, like flying King Kong in on big yellow balloons to go fight Godzilla. And I still think that final battle is really fun to watch. So full of interaction between the two monsters. Great sense of fury and rage. So I am proud to have King Kong versus Godzilla at number 2.
I have it at number 4, but it is for sure like top marks in my eyes. And I think if Godzilla Minus One is a film for someone who's like new and just being truly introduced to the world, that's where you start. And then after they see it and enjoy it, you go, well, have I got something fun for you? And this is the next one besides the movie that we will say last on this list, which I'm so excited we finally have a match.
I think we do.
And as it should be. But I mean, yeah, just like what fun and really going for it. And I think we probably watched this one also 7 years ago, but still rings so true in the memory and is one that I'm like excited to have seen, and also excited to watch again a handful of times just because it's so absurd.
Yes.
I've got it at 7. and I agree with everything you're saying, and I think it's a really good time. I like it quite a bit. The only reason I guess it's 7 as opposed to 4 is I think there are a couple kind of long parts for me. It's not like consistently hilarious and crazy and fun, but the best parts are great. The last fight is really good. Balloons are great. There's a lot of good stuff. It's really good. It's in that my 3 or 4 through 10 is just rip roaring good times.
I think this also too, just giving it kudos for being like the first one to kick off. I feel like, right, this was the first one to kick off like that. This more, now we're being silly, we're having a good time, we're putting up some characters on screen, and this is what we're doing.
Yeah, it was kind of presaged by Mothra. That was the real innovator. Which, by the way, I would have put somewhere around 5.
Oh,
5 or 6.
It would be probably my 5. It would be probably ahead of Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla for me.
But this took it to another level, and it was certainly, as you know, it was the biggest commercial success Godzilla ever had until, I don't know, because back then they recorded ticket sales, now they record money overall, so it's hard to compare it to, especially once you get into inflation. But anyway, huge financial success set Godzilla on the path he is today, and very smart. And then, get ready for a Screonk. At number 1, I have the original Godzilla. Screonk!
Yes! I knew it. It had to be. It would have been fucking bonkers if one of y'all didn't.
It had to be you. I do think that -1 is the more humanistic movie with the most involving characters for a modern audience, but the original Godzilla just has that emotional rawness of being not even a full decade separated from a national trauma, and it's full of that heaviness of the heart, the challenge of transitioning from one national identity to another, and being haunted by a metaphorical monster. And that's not to say that Japan is innocent in World War II. It's certainly not. But I don't think the movie pretends it is. It's just focused on this massive crack in the history of Japan and how people are just raw and recovering from how that changed everything and how frightening it was. And there's a sense of effort and importance and involvement from the cast and crew that I don't think has ever quite been beat. They really felt like they were doing something important, and while that's a little naive, I've been saying that a lot, it's really commendable, and you really feel it in the final product.
I mean, I think it's something, this was the first movie that we watched, so that was 7 years ago for us, right? But it's almost 70 years ago that the film came out, right? Coming up on that anniversary, and I think the fact that it as a standalone movie still holds up against, in terms of, like you were saying, from a narrative perspective and the commitment that everyone was giving to it, I think is honestly something that's very incredible. Like, I think if you were to, not say minus, I feel like this is the film that I often actually recommend when people are looking to start, because I'm like, this will give you the setup and this will give you an understanding of actually where, then the million different ways it ran off to were grounded, what it was grounded in originally. And I think there aren't many films that were made that long ago that still stand up in that way and can be relevant today. Even like thinking about Dr. Serizawa, like that character still exists strongly in my mind, and that was a long time ago that we watched that movie, but that ending, all of it just sticks.
Yeah.
Here. It's good. It's really good, and it. I don't want to like give bonus points for influence, but like you kind of have to.
You have to. Yeah. It almost like it really like kind of gives me chills if I really think about it. Like it's kind of crazy the impact and like seeing now, okay, these 38 other films, and we didn't even talk about, you know, the TV shows and this and that. But the fact that all the silliness, all the aliens, all this and that we love from the series is rooted in this film that was taking on something massive immediately following a trauma of war.
Yeah. And there is a, you know, the obvious interpretation is there's like something ironic and distasteful about that, but there's also something kind of sweet about it. Because like I said, it's about the transition from we were this thing, now we have to be another thing. And Godzilla was like the first warrior in that thing, which is a big exporter of culture primarily, and being able to be proud of that, and rather than have that be rooted in nationalism, you get to have Godzilla lead the way and have it be about international cooperation and denuclearization. And it's a complicated thing, but I think that the traditional narrative about like, oh haha, it got so silly and stupid, misses that.
But I think too that over time now so many things can exist within it, right? Because like if you look at -1, that is much more going back to the roots. And I feel like when we were watching -1 and talking about it, we were speaking about like how they were living and creating their lives again amidst this total destruction. Like those scenes where they're kind of recreating their home right in the midst of destruction, and that's going back to its roots and just really open. Yeah, you got to count influence. I mean, open the doors for so we would not be here without it. That's for sure.
When you say, you know, the series evolved and clearly steered away from what could have been nationalistic, you know, I'm thinking like maybe we should consider taking a tip from that from the Godzilla series and making some sequels to American Sniper, where like Bradley Cooper like makes a bunch of friends from different countries and they all start fighting aliens. Like, they all work together. Like take the most nationalistic thing we've got and just make it about everyone working in unison and having
aliens
some fun.
and cool.
I love it.
Wait,
as long as the weird baby can.
The weird baby. Oh, you mean Minya? Same thing.
That's the Minya.
Yeah.
That's the American Sniper series.
Are there lists where it's not number 1?
Rarely.
Okay, I was gonna say haters. They better hide those lists from me.
It's generally recognized because yes, this is one of the few Godzilla movies that is just a good movie. Period. No excuses.
We made it.
We did it. We got through all 38, and it only took 3.5 hours.
Whoa. Can I unveil my alternate heaven and hell ranking?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously we started the heaven, hell, and purgatory thing in theme with the evangelist part of the Godzillavangelists. Obviously we're doing those as we were going. I'm after seeing the whole series and doing this exercise, I'm thinking perhaps if you like Godzilla and you see we have about half heaven, half hell. I think for me it's 2/3 and a third. If you like Godzilla, I would contend that perhaps the real ranking is they're kind of all heaven. You could basically, if you like him, there's no reason why you wouldn't watch Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. No reason. You would watch it, and there's something to like out of that. If anything, I would, just to be a dick, I would say you could argue that the 3 anime ones are purgatory because they're kind of a different thing. And you could kind of say 98 is kind of its own thing too. Maybe that's a purgatory too. But why would you miss out on something as delightful as that? I wonder. But there really is no. If you're a fan of these, there's really no hell. There's something good in basically all of them. That's all I'll say.
Sam, the way Ryan smiled and that warmed his heart, and I feel like his mission is complete. He's like, I have done it. They're all happened.
This is the end of the Last Temptation of Christ when he says, "It is complete."
Exactly. I'm over here feeling like an asshole for throwing so much into hell tonight. I'm like, oh, I didn't rate it yet. Put it in hell, I guess.
I said it at the beginning of this. I'm gonna watch all of these again, except maybe the 3 animes movies. I mean it. I'm gonna see all of them at least one more time before I die. Probably twice, at least.
I'll probably rewatch 10 to 15 of them. But I got 5 on my list before the next time we meet, so that I can do a proper ranking. Because the dusty old memory did not keep me watching it.
Needed to polish that off. Alright, I got a real quick fan message. It's from Rants R. Hi, my name is Rants. It's a great name.
Great name.
I found your podcast on Spotify. I've also been a Godzilla evangelist since I was a young boy. My first movie was either Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster or Tokyo SOS in the early 2000s when I was about 4 or 5. I started listening to your podcast on July 10th of 2024, and a week later I'm already at your guys' take on Son of Godzilla.
Wow.
Which hopefully you also have as your top 3 rants. You are an astounding host, Ryan, and Joanna and Sam are amazing co-hosts. I might be leaning more towards Team Joanna than Team Sam, although it's just barely, since they're both wonderful. I've been recommending this podcast to any and all Godzilla lovers that I know of. If you're reading this on your podcast, may everyone be blessed by the Father, Godzilla, the Son, Heisei Goji Jr., and the Holy Spirit, Mothra. Thank you, Rance. I think that was an appropriately sweet message.
That was perfect. And also perfectly timed for now, I feel like, too. Just like wrapping everything up. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. If you keep listening at that pace, Rance, you'll probably be done by the end of the year. So pace it out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming to an end, right? So watch out. But thank you for that, because we really do appreciate it. I feel like it's fun to hear that we're getting, like, that new people are coming to it too, and then can kind of blast through.
I hope that can continue to happen. For sure. Which ties into this is probably the last time I'm going to give the traditional call to action. Next time it'll be a little bit different. So here we go. If you know anybody who likes weird movies, cult movies, it doesn't have to be Godzilla, but I'm sure if they like Godzilla, that helps. If you want to comment on our YouTube videos, subscribe to us, send us emails, you still have time to get it in for the finale part 2. It's probably only a few days, but if you're listening to this,
you have 24 hours.
That's right.
To write us a letter.
You legitimately might. So if you're hearing this, go to your email right now. Your last chance to get in for that last episode.
What are you doing? Go do it right now. Stop listening.
Yes, now. You're running out of time.
If you're here now and you've listened to 3.5 hours of us talking, you gotta go. You gotta write that.
Legitimately, I do not know how much we can cut from
this. Can't cut it. It's fine. It's the penultimate. It's fine.
Yep. It's a big smorgasbord for all you longtime listeners. We love you. Take care of yourself. Take care of everyone else. And keep spreading the word of Godzilla. Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, is brought to you by me, Ryan Sargent, and my friends Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. This episode was edited by Brogan Malloy. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the wonderful artists who made the movies we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at godzillavangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at GodzillaVangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us next time. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.